Okay, everyone, we're live.
Great. All right. We're all live. We have a quorum. I'd like to call the Board of Education meeting to order. Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. Before we start, we have kind of two housekeeping items. One is that we need to add a session to talk about school scenarios and public health update. We want to add that to right after 7D. Can I have a motion? Someone? Gina, you're good at this.
Move that the Weston Board of Education amend the agenda to add the item for school scenarios and COVID update after item 7D.
Second,
Second, Ruby.
all in favor?
Hi, Taffy.
Hi, Ruby.
Hi, Melissa.
Hi, Gina.
Hi, Victor.
Hi,
Hillary.
Tony. All opposed? Motion passes. The second thing that we need to do is item 8G, the teacher residency program. I'd like to amend that item to have a discussion and possible vote on the teacher residency program. Can I have a motion to amend that agenda item?
Tony, do you mean the alternative pathways or?
Oh, I'm sorry. Alternative pathways. Yes.
Thank you.
What's the agenda item?
It's 8F. I'm sorry, alternative pathways.
And we're amending to have
We're
discussion and vote?
we're basically modifying the agenda item to include a discussion and possible vote.
All right. Move that the Weston Board of Education amend posted agenda item 8F to be discussion and possible vote on alternative pathways program for Weston High School.
Have a second?
Second, Ruby.
Okay, all in favor?
Hi, Taffy.
Hi, Ruby.
I'm Melissa.
Hi, Gina.
Hi, Victor. Hi, Victor.
Hi, Tony. All opposed? Okay, motion passes. We have a motion to approve the minutes.
Move that the Weston Board of Education approve the minutes from the November 16 regular meeting and the December 9th special meeting.
Second,
Second.
any discussion, comments, edits? No? Okay, all in favor?
Hi, Taffy.
Hi, Ruby.
I'm Melissa.
Hi, Gina.
Hi, Victor.
Hi, Hillary.
Hi, Tony. All opposed? Okay, motion passes. Public comment, is June on?
Yes, I'm
June,
here.
Do we have any public comment this evening?
No, there's no public comment this evening.
Okay. Okay. Student reps, you're on.
Best part of the meeting.
Hi, everyone. I hope you guys are all safe and healthy. I know Ava was going to start off by just talking about the schedule that we've changed recently.
Hi,
Ava?
everyone. So recently, we switched to online for the next week, and we've kind of been online for a week now. And I think a lot of students are super eager to go back. But overall, I think that it was the right decision. I know a lot of students, including myself, we're probably gonna end up going online anyways, the week before break and the week after, just for like safety precautions. If anybody's seeing small like member groups of their family, so there would be a lot more students online anyways than there would be in the classrooms. So I think that it definitely was the best choice. But besides for that, the new schedule that we have been experiencing for about the past month, I know a lot of students are really, really enjoying it. It's really fluid. I think Natalie and we haven't really heard many complaints. A lot of people are very happy with how it's going. There's definitely a larger sense of routine than when you would have half the day, go home, and then have half your classes online. But now you kind of just have a more fluid sense of how the week goes. Not only that, but the teachers are putting in so much effort to make sure that the kids online are feeling included and things like that. So there's not much of a break between the online students and the in-person, which is really great. Besides for that, student government is planning kind of like a spirit week type of thing when we come back, kind of to get the whole student population involved and motivated again and kind of excited about school. So during November, we held some online events to kind of mimic a spirit week, and a ton of students actually ended up participating, and it went really well. So we're going to kind of do that again to bring some normalcy back into our routines. The seniors are starting to kind of think about prom and graduation, which again has to be super fluid, depending on the state of COVID and things like that. But that's really exciting as well. And then we also just wanted to say thank you to the PTO for the senior gifts. We are so happy with those. It's a small gesture, but at the same time, right now is kind of the peak of the college process and things like that. So I know everyone's really happy just to receive something. And then Natalie's
Yeah.
going to continue.
Just going off of what Ava said, we really appreciate the senior gift we all just got in our mailboxes, especially right before break when it's the last 3 days. It's definitely a bit of a struggle to like maintain focus and everything, but that was a really nice surprise. Like Ava said, the new schedule that we've just been experiencing since I think last Monday, and through these 3 days until the 7th in January, we all really like. And even though we're online, student government has still been able to participate and put on a lot of activities. Like Ava said, we had a trivia night online. We had an Among Us night. I don't know if any of your kids play Among Us, but it was a big hit and we had a ton of participants, which was really good. And with that, we also did a lot of community service. We had the freshmen participating with an animal shelter, and they raised a lot of goods like blankets and food that they ended up not being able to drop off because they couldn't get back into the school, but they're going to do that when we return in January. We did a student government wide person-to-person community service initiative in Norwalk with Mrs. Garone, who used to be one of the librarians at the high school. And we did a coat drive, and a lot of kids from student government went to that as well. And we recently just made a video that our tech liaison Eli Brennan is working on right now, and we're sending it out tomorrow just to really unify the school and just catch everyone up and wish everyone a safe and happy holidays. So yeah, I think that's everything that we have in terms of updates. So we hope that you all have a really safe and happy winter break, and we can't wait to get to the next Board of Ed meeting.
Questions from the board members? No, I think this is, thank you. Thanks for the update, and hope that you have a wonderful holiday as well, and looking forward to further updates in January. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us.
So let's move to new business. We have 3 new course proposals. Ken, do you want to go through them?
Yes, good evening, everyone. And I'll give a brief overview broadly of the 3 courses, and I'll do so within the context of the fact that we've fully vetted these course proposals at a curriculum committee meeting, the recent December curriculum committee meeting. And so these are 3 courses we're very excited to bring forward for board approval this evening. to be included in the upcoming high school program of studies to be ready for course registration for the 2021-22 school year. So we have, broadly, 3 courses here, 2 of which move forward our equity work in the district. And as you all know, we've done a significant amount of work in terms of the curriculum K-12 to bolster our equity curriculum in terms of incorporating, whether it's texts or units that really represent broad perspectives. And at the high school level, the first course is in social studies, and this is our American Tapestry course, Multiculturalism in the United States. And when we went through this course, we looked at it from the perspective of the fact that, well, in the state of Connecticut, schools are going to be required to offer a 1-year course, very narrowly focused. And so we've done our research, and we have felt that while we will still need to offer a course in 2 years from now, this course we wanted to get into our program of studies earlier rather than later. It's a semester course, and we feel that in terms of looking at the identity of various groups, it's going to be a very interesting course. Nick Torres has taken the lead on putting it together with Lisa's support, and you can see in the coursework that it gets into African American in Black identity. It gets into Latino studies. It gets into Asian American studies, Native Americans as well, and also looks at gender and LGBTQ identity as well. So it's a very comprehensive course, but also pulls the content back to current issues, which is something that we felt that the state course was lacking. So this is for next year, a semester course. The second course is called Voices from the Edge. This was led by Christine Sancata, working with the English department to create an elective opportunity for students that will look at a variety of perspectives, putting students in the shoes of different groups and perspectives. And that Voices from the Edge course kind of builds on what we've been doing K-8 in looking at a lot of the offerings that we have within the curriculum. So in terms of the literature, you can see that in the course proposal, what we have planned there. And then the third course is really, it's a restructuring. The art course that is in the visual arts department, 3D art and design, we're calling it. It's basically weaving together our crafts, advanced crafts, our ceramics and sculpture courses, which were low enrollment courses. And we think by bringing the content of those courses into one course, that we're going to be able to increase the enrollment and sustain that course. So that's a restructuring more than anything else. The content is very similar to what we've offered previously. In total with these courses, we really are looking at no additional FTE. It's a shifting of staffing, where students decide to sign up and enroll. We may not, run other elective courses, but that's how we always do things. Usually based on interest will be the courses we run and don't run. And I know, Lisa and her team are here. Well, Lisa and I think I saw Meredith Starzik are both here. If you have questions, get into more detail into these courses or how they're going to be shared with students as opportunities, we can certainly answer any questions you have. But like I said, we spend a good deal of time in curriculum talking about these. Any questions?
I think this is fabulous. I'm so excited about it, so much that I actually sent the link over to WEF and was like, look at what they're doing. They're actually doing something ahead of the Connecticut schedule. I mean, I know Connecticut's the first state to require studies like this, but the fact that you guys are doing it a year before the Act 1912 is awesome. So kudos for being proactive to do something ASAP, especially, we always talk about in Weston of us living in this bubble, but you guys have been able to react to just what's going on a global level. And even though we're in our bubble, to make an impact here. So Lisa, please thank Nicholas and Christine for just being so incredibly proactive immediately. My question though is, I know that you said that you would, based on enrollment, you might have to flux classes to see what the interests are. What is your minimum number of students needed to run a class?
Lisa, do you want to speak to that, or
Sure.
you have?
Excuse me. Between 15 and 20 is the ideal number. If it's less than 15, we have to think about it. What often happens with elective courses, and Meredith could probably comment, is, if you offer an elective one semester in one period slot, and you get 25 to 30 students that are interested, by the time the schedule shakes out, it could bring down the number to 20, for example. Now, if the course is extremely popular, and we do see this as a feeder to AP Human Geography, which has become extremely popular, it could end up being 2 sections, which then again gives us more flexibility in the place where it is in the schedule and how many kids we can offer it to.
Okay. And have we ever done something, I'm just thinking hypothetically, let's just say we have low enrollment. Have we ever done something where this is maybe an online class only for children, for those 10 to 12 kids who are really interested in this class, but then maybe want to take it off hours?
What we would have to do with that is it gets a little bit tricky, Ruby, because you also have to consider, one section of the course is a 0.1 FTE. And so you also have to work, I guess I would say, in constraints with the union, the teachers union on that. Now, that being said, I do believe that there are some creative ways to work with that. We were toying with the idea this spring of finding some way to pilot something along these lines, just to see what the interest is and to spark interest. We have independent study routes. We have different things like that. So we're pretty committed to this curriculum and what we want to offer. And based on the feedback that we've already gotten anecdotally, I would say, from the social justice advocacy group, it's very positive. So I'm confident that in some way, shape, or form, we will have this.
Any other questions or comments? We'll do 3 separate motions for the 3 course proposals. Can I have a motion for American Tapestry?
Move that,
Go ahead.
sorry. Move that the Weston Board of Education approve the new course proposal for American Tapestry.
Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Hi,
Hi,
Tap.
Hillary.
Hi, Gina.
Hi, Ruby.
Hi, Melissa.
Hi, Victor.
Aye, Tony. All opposed? Okay, motion passes. Can I have the second? Voices from the Edge.
Move that Weston Board of Education approve the course proposal for Voices from the Edge.
Second?
Second.
Second.
Thanks, Gina. All in favor?
Hi, Ruby.
Hi,
Hi,
Taffy.
Gina.
Hi, Melissa.
Hi, Victor.
Hi, Hillary.
Hi, Tony. All opposed? Okay, motion passes. And 3D art and design.
Move that the Weston Board of Education approve the new course proposal for 3D art and design.
All in favor? I mean, sorry, second?
Second.
Thanks, Gina. All in favor?
Hi, Ruby.
Hi, Gina.
Hi, Taffy.
Hi, Melissa.
Hi, Hillary.
Hi, Victor.
Hi, Tony. All opposed? Okay, motion passes. Next agenda item. Phil, we're getting to you before 10 p.m. this time.
I was a little bit surprised to see that I was this early on the agenda. I was kind of scrambling because, as you guys know, this is back in the middle of budget season. The good news for this report is that we really do not have any significant changes month over month to report. So for the period ending November, we currently have a projected spend through year end of $54,141,183, roughly an available balance of $20,259. As you know, as we mentioned in FinCom, our main focus for the past couple of months has been really on just reopening and all the costs and all the related offsets for those unanticipated expenditure. So this is a good pause. Next month, we have a lot of other things that we will definitely talk about and include into the budget. Any questions on the general update? Okay. There's one item, budget transfers to be approved, $148,302. And this is pretty much to true up those object codes that were not budgeted for because of unsettled contract at the end of the budget cycle. We have so listed on the sheet are all the various object codes.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Phil, just for the purpose of the public, I just want to beef that explanation up a little bit with these are increases to the non-union employees, the union settlements, and we do budget a bucketed amount to cover those items. And this is just allocating those amounts out to the appropriate lines. This is not an additional charge. I just want to be very clear about that for the public.
That is correct, Gina. Do you want me to just finish everything before you guys vote, or?
Yeah, why don't you go through the Internal Services Fund?
Sure. So we continue to trend favorable for the Internal Services Fund. For the year to date and in November, we have an approximate claims of 140,000. So based on the theoretical average, we're trending about 6.5% below the theoretical, so which is about 25,000 or so, which would put us in a good place in terms of the Internal Services Fund. You guys will recall that the budgeted amount for dental claims is approximately $397,000, which will give us approximately $760,000 available in the fund at year end.
So Phil, have people started going back to the dentist?
It doesn't really appear that way. I think year over year, month over month, we're definitely below where things have been for the past couple of years.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, so people are going, just not to the extent, which is good and bad.
I don't know. I mean, not taking care of their teeth.
Yeah, but we do have claims. For example, in October, our claims was approximately $30,000. It kind of shifted a little bit in November, probably because of the Thanksgiving break, to $24,000. So we'll see how things continue to trend for the remainder of the year. So people definitely are going, but there may be some elective procedures, if you can have any for dental, that people are not taking advantage of at this time.
Mm-hmm.
And that, in a nutshell, is a financial update for November.
Okay, can I have a motion?
Move that the Weston Board of Education approve the fifth fiscal year 2021 financial update and budget line item transfers as presented by Mr. Cross.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Thanks, Melissa. All in favor?
Hi, Taffy.
Hi, Ruby.
Aye, Gina.
I'm Melissa.
Hi, Victor.
Hillary?
Aye, Hillary.
Hi, Tony. All opposed? Okay, motion passes. Now,
Tony,
Yeah.
Tony, just briefly. Hey, June, just for housekeeping, I want to let you know I did amend that motion, just tweaked it and added in the transfers item from what was listed in CABE. So please just make sure to pick up the appropriate motion language.
Okay, I will.
Thank you.
we added the new agenda item now, didn't we? Like, after 8D, right?
Yes, Tony.
Okay.
So school scenarios and COVID updates.
All right. Bill, why don't I hand it over to you? Talk about school scenarios and public health update. Uh-oh.
All right, I'm fine. Just hit the wrong button. I'm going to be joined in this by several people. First, I'll hit the public health and medical guidance. And then I'm going to ask sort of Tracy and Phil to join me with a little framing on that, because they've also been part of the conversations that are critical understanding that. Then I'm going to give you a little perspective on where our area districts are currently as it relates to just before the break. Then I'll give you my sense of where they're likely to be in January. This is based, the first part is based on a document the superintendent circulate. It's a private document, but it's very clear and specific, so I can share it. The next thing is where they're likely to be in January. It's still getting figured out, but it'll be a verbal update, not necessarily district by district, but it'll give you a pretty keen sense of what the area districts are thinking about. And then I'll give you the headlines on a set of recommendations for how we would like to come back to school in January. And if the screen share works at that point, I'll just give you the headlines on a screen share. And then on that, be very much turning to Laura, Patty, Tracy in particular to fill out the color on that, because the adjustments we're thinking about very much are at that early elementary and the special ed level. Our middle school and high school, we're seeing pretty much as has been. So Dan Doak and Lisa may want to join in, but I think the energy is going to be substantially with our younger students and our special needs students. So let me sort of go into this. From a public health medical standpoint, I've been sending to the board every week, and I do send that out to the task force as well as to all of the staff, the COVID-19 spread data that we get from the CSDE and DPH. So all of you should know that we're up north of 61 in terms of the major indicator, lead indicator that's used. That's the number of cases per 100,000. About 5 weeks ago, we were in the 30s, so we've more than doubled the level. The hopeful news is while it's still increasing, it's a slower rate of increase. It went from about 58 last week to 61. And again, that's a 14-day average, so there's a lag in that data. The positivity rate, though, is up close to 10%. And this is Fairfield County data. Weston itself is still in the red zone, which is north of 25, but hanging in around the 30 range. And the positivity rate is in about the 5 or 6 range. So still levels of great concern. We're statistically advised not to compare that Fairfield County number to the Weston number, nor to compare the Weston number to the New Canaan or Darien number. But it is important we look at our own community number week to week to week. And based on what we're going to recommend in a few minutes, you'll see that we're really trying to do what we can. We're statistically advised not to compare that Fairfield County number to the Weston number, nor to compare the Weston number to the. Can you hear me? I'm hearing myself again. Number, but it is important we look at our own community number. Was it
That
Memorex or was
that
it?
was sort of surreal.
Hey, Mr. DeVito, was that Memorex or me?
I don't know what that was.
Well, given what's going on in the world with our, you're always a little nervous as to what's going on here. So,
Dan, are we still live though? Just want to make sure we are.
We are still live.
Okay.
all right, I thought that was the hook. Was that the hook? All right. So,
What I'm going to do is I'm going to mute everybody else. If everyone could just double check if everyone can mute themselves, that would be great. I think it may have been a feedback issue.
So can you hear me? Thumbs up. Yeah, so right where I was saying, even as the pandemic continues to kick up speed and steam, we also have to watch what's happening in the UK right now with a new variant and what it may mean. Because as we've learned, this is not just a domestic issue, it's a truly global issue. But having said all that, we're gonna, in a few minutes, recommend efforts to get as many students in a safe way back in school in person, because we are listening. Equally important as listening is, as educators, we want the in-person, and we're balancing a lot here. So I'll get to that in a second. In terms of the remote mode that we went into on the 14th, every district right now around us is in remote. Within 2 or 3 days of us going into remote on the 14th, nearly everybody else went there. And I think it was for the reasons you heard from our student government leaders. They put it very, very well. None of us necessarily wanted to go into remote, but it was clear that already nearly most of our families had opted into remote. As the students said, they themselves may have gone there anyway, be it through VDL or other approaches. So it just made sense for us to, as of the 14th, go in and have at least 8 days of consistency. It was my sense that within a couple of days, other districts would also be there. I couldn't say that, I couldn't announce that, but I kind of had a sense of what was going to happen. So the leadership team, give them credit, I'll take the blame. Give them credit, I'll take the blame. But the move was clear that get in now for 8 days to give ourselves some teaching and learning consistency, some predictability as we headed into the winter break. Yes, part of it is the great fear of being quarantined and what that would mean for important family gatherings and events, as lean as those are supposed to be. In making that decision, we were most concerned about our special ed students and our younger learners. Mark that in terms of what I'm going to come back to in a few minutes. In terms of what it looks like for January, in terms of the return of schools, the way districts around us can return, is there's a theme emerging as difficult as the pandemic is. Many districts around us are hoping by mid-January, and it's mid-January, not right away, but mid-January, shift back out of remote. Remember now, all are in remote right now. Shift back out of remote into, at least for the younger learners and their special needs, high needs, special needs, some amount of in-person. Now, for instance, New Canaan just announced that they're staying in remote until the 11th of January. As of the 11th, they will bring back in K-8 hybrid, but they're going to keep their bring back K-8 full, or what they call all in. They're going to keep the high school hybrid. We have found across the fall that 3 districts, really 4, have been most consistent about some amount of all in. It's been Greenwich, Darien, New Canaan, and Ridgefield. As necessary, Ken can speak to sort of how it's worked out for Ridgefield. Other districts, it's been some in, some hybrid. All of us facing this issue of having to shift into temporary remote due to quarantine issues and staffing and all the rest. But shorthand right now, what's important is in early January, most will still be in remote, but beginning as much as they can for their younger learners, finding ways to get those students back in person. And that's in the midst of most of them seeing the same very conservative views right now from the medical and health advisors because of the nature of the pandemic, the pace at which it's been picking up and spreading, and we just have to monitor that. So what are we going to do when it comes to January? And we're going to announce this tomorrow. New Canaan and other districts announced today. I'm going to try and do a screen share right now, see if you can see it. Can you see this document here? It says tentative timeline, 2-pager. So tentative timeline, and I have to review with families a note going out tomorrow, the January 4th through 6th, those are remote for schools. There was, Patty picked up from a few parents that when they heard the 7th, they thought the 7th was when we were back. But no, we're in on the 4th, 5th, and 6th via remote. As of the 7th, and excuse some of the layout issues here, Hurlbut will have, and the details are going to follow from Laura and Tracy, but ELC would be all in as of the 7th. Kindergarten would be all in as of the 7th. First through second grade would be a hybrid full day, as would be the rest of the district. WIS, middle school and high school would be hybrid full day. Coming down into January 19th or 25th, to be determined, we would have Hurlbut first grade all in, and then the rest of the district staying hybrid full day. If you're concerned about Weston students relative to students in area districts, if we can pull this off relative to the medical issues, the public health issues, and all the rest, we'll be right in keeping with nearly every district around us, and especially those I mentioned that have been most active of trying to have students in. I've put a placeholder here now for February 8th. That's 2 weeks after, be it the 25th. That there we would do what we could. We'd be looking at very carefully, can we get Hurlbut second grade in, all in? And can we get WIS all in across that, in that time frame? Criteria. This is such a moving target. They're not specifics here, but we'd be looking at first, I'm over here now, if you can see what I'm highlighting. We'd be looking at COVID-19 regional spread, that's that Fairfield County. COVID-19 Weston, that's the town of Weston spread. The within district spread, number 3, that's very, very important and could be, what's most important to how we proceed. Public health and medical guidance gets all folded within those first 3, but that's not just what Mark Cooper and Laura Marks are telling us, but a range of experts. And then this is qualitative, but it's this 5th one, the quality of teaching and learning in all in versus hybrid full day. We are getting good feedback through a survey that our VDL parents have done as to the quality of what's happening in the hybrid and remote mode. And we want to balance that against what we're learning as to the all in. Because we want all in, but everyone should know that all in within this pandemic is not the same as all in pre-pandemic or when we get post the pandemic. But this here is the rough timeline. I'll take this screen down now because I'd like Laura, Patty, and Tracy to put some meat on the bones of this, talk a bit about why some of these dates matter and all the rest. So I'll put that back up when we need to. And obviously it'll get posted to share with the board, and it's the basis of what's going to go out to families tomorrow. So I don't know, Laura, Tracy, you want to start?
Yeah, I can. Thank you, Bill. I can add a little bit to that. Bill gave a really great framework for what we're looking at. Of course, we all want our students back in as much as possible. We will be, as Bill said, bringing the ELC back all in, which is the model they have been in all year. Because of the class sizes in the ELC, we've been able to have them all in person throughout. We are prioritizing getting our kindergartners back first. As Bill said, of course, we all want everyone back in, and we want to do it safely. Given the current numbers with COVID, it is concerning. There's a lot of speculation and concern over what January might look like in terms of COVID numbers, post-holiday surge, in addition to the surge we saw after Thanksgiving. So, but that being said, we do want to prioritize our kindergartners, our youngest learners, and have them all in on the 7th. Following that, and of course, depending on what the numbers look like in January, which none of us know right now, how much more spread there will be, we would like to look at bringing in the first grade, and then, as Bill said, the other elementary grades. One of the considerations that we've been using throughout the recent months has been the density question in the building. One of the recommendations has been to reduce density in the building, just the number of people in any given room in any given building. And that really is where the balancing act has to happen. Every sector of the community right now, everywhere, is looking at reduced capacity in businesses, restaurants, places where people gather. So we need to do the same in the schools and consider the density within the building and the number of people that are interacting with each other. We've been very pleased with the mitigating strategies we've had since the beginning of the year. We think we've been very successful with them. And I think the lack of outbreaks in the school is really a testament to that we have had good mitigating strategies. And as we're looking to bring kindergarten back in and possibly other grades, that is something that we will continue to keep at the top of our minds and part of the planning process. So I'm going to let Tracy speak if she has anything to add. We will be bringing back all of our special education students as well on the 7th with ELC and kindergarten.
Yeah, so I think a majority of the updates have been shared at this point. Our goal from a special education standpoint, essentially district-wide, is to return to the format of instruction that we were providing prior to the shift to remote. And that specifically includes, and I'm giving a preview to some other grade levels, but our special education students K-5 having the option to attend in person every day. It's voluntary, largely because of confidentiality reasons. We also will be looking to have our high needs students in each of the 4 buildings back full day every day. And then the middle school and high school will continue with their schedule. We do have some students that we have individualized plans for, and those would continue as well. So it's really a shift to exactly what we were doing prior to the shift to full remote from a special education standpoint.
And I guess I can just follow along, though it's pretty much along the same lines. So on January 7th, we'll return full day hybrid. Our students are doing really well, though, on their remote, as I keep peeking into all the different classrooms. But I know that they're all anxious to get back to school, as well as we are anxious to have them back in school as well. We really want our students back in the building as much as we possibly can, but we really are very conscious about the amount of students and that social distancing, and our classrooms just really don't allow for that 6 feet apart. The other areas that we really are concerned about is when they're not wearing their masks, such as when they're having mask breaks or lunch or snack. And it's more difficult now in the winter because they can't be going outside. They can't be taking frequent recess breaks or sitting out in the grass or using the courtyard. So that's something we'll be looking into just as we try to figure out how we can get them all back in safely and give them that space that they need.
The only other piece I wanted to add, while we're looking at all these different schooling scenarios, is that we are constantly watching, evaluating, and evolving our programs. While we certainly want students in person when possible, some students have chosen to be distance learning and probably will be for the entire year. And we are constantly evaluating all of our programs and ensuring high quality teaching and learning throughout this pandemic, whether students are in person or online. We monitor student growth, we monitor student progress, and I'm very pleased to report that we have seen tremendous growth with our students. They're learning, they're socializing, they're interacting online with their peers, and for in particular, we wanted to keep a close eye on our students who are VDL and who are not in person at all. It's a very different experience, and they're doing very well. Very well. And as Patty said, we're in classrooms. We're either dropping in on the Zooms or visiting in classrooms when we're in person. And we're seeing a lot of excited students. Even our kindergartners on Zoom, they really do amaze me. They certainly are tiring out by the end of the day, but their level of interaction and their level of stamina and work is really, it's wonderful to see.
Laura, the survey that was done on voluntary distance learning is something that we should probably come back and share with the entire board and the community, because I think there's some interesting, good data that's come back from the parent survey there.
what Tony's referring to. And we, as you know, we have a task force. On the task force are two parents whose their children are VDL, voluntary distance learning. They had done a survey of all the voluntary distance learning parents, about 50% response rate, so a very good response rate. And they're currently writing up that. And it most likely, if it doesn't go out in the next day or two before the break, it'll go out right after the break. And what's important is a broad response to that survey shows a lot of affirmation for what is going on through, for those families that are fully remote, what is going on, the quality of the experience educationally and academically, with some good critique of things that could get better. But it is a very strong set of findings, and these parents have led the process of sorting that out, and we want to get that out. I want to add, I purposely left off the pivotal issue for us in determining how much all-in we have, and I want to wait on that till Dan and Lisa, if you want to add anything this at this point. But I think the energy of this discussion, as in most districts right now, is substantially with our younger learners and our special ed students. But I don't know, Dan and Lisa, if you want to add anything right now.
No, I think at this point, Bill, as you indicated, we're going to stay with the hybrid and continue to monitor and improve how that's going. But it doesn't make sense for us at this point to look at doing the all-in, given some of the considerations that we have with moving classes and the number of students in the spaces.
I would agree.
Yeah.
And in terms of what we're going to see across the region in January, again, I mean, if you look at the districts that have been leading the most with all in, New Canaan's going to return back, but go hybrid with their high school. Greenwich is staying hybrid with their high school. So at that older student level, they're holding at the hybrid, but trying to get that full in. Here's the key issue. And I've had this discussion now really starting this morning with the cabinet. Lots of discussions, don't worry, it just wasn't today. But a real pivotal on the following. That over the weekend, as I'm reflecting on the Friday conversation with Mark Cooper and Laura Marks, the time they were the most concerned I've heard them, but also saying you need students in school. We understand that, but very concerned about the uptick. Laura Marks is a pediatrician saying she is starting to think she's seeing what's some in-school spread. We're seeing that in some neighboring districts. And so that's not enough yet to stop the in-person, but worried. Mark Cooper understands the drive to have in-person. My own sense of the other districts, of what's happening there, the amount of in-person, listening to my fellow superintendents as they think about January, most not, again, all remote now, and giving a bit of time before they get right back in it in January. But here's the point. As districts have gone into full in with the younger students, that social distancing metric has shrunk. We struggled to have a social distancing metric of close to 5 or 6 feet at WIS. It was more like 2 feet. Second grade, it's more like 2 feet. And that's one of those mitigating factors we hear about and is cited for us by all the experts. Other districts, though, are saying, or just they're going to mask, be comfortable with closer social distancing, and take care of the other pieces. So here's the question for us to be grappling with, and that's why there's this timeline you saw on the sheet, is let's get the kindergartners back in, our ELC, I left SPED off because it crosses all grade levels, get them back in, see how we're doing, consider ways to get second grade in, so all of Hurlbut's in later in the month, but really look hard at that social distancing question, and what's our comfort level with having tighter quarters, play that against what we're seeing with the pandemic, and then think about WIS for early February as we watch what's happening with the pandemic, watch how we're doing at containing spread within the district as we gradually bring in more full, dense spaces. So that's the method here of why we would phase back in, trying to get for our elementaries all in, but to do that gradually as we juxtapose to how are we doing on those other metrics. Again, to repeat, regional in the town of Weston, within our own schools, and then our comfort level of social distancing as we bring more and more into the buildings. That's the thoughts for tonight, to get reactions from the board. And let's open it up.
Questions from, comments from the other board members?
Just a question. There's been a lot of chatter amongst other districts that they're staying remote till you get 2 weeks post the winter break. What were the discussions within Weston about potentially extending the remote till we get beyond that 2-week quarantine period post the break?
We looked at it. It's a good question, Gina. We definitely looked at it. It's mixed. I mean, a number of districts. I mean, right now Wilton's planning to come right back in that first week. Darien planning to come right back into that first week. Greenwich is planning to come right back into that first week. New Canaan is waiting 1 week. You may know that New Canaan is one of the few districts doing fairly regular testing. They're going to do voluntary testing on the 8th. And then bring people back in on the 11th, again, K-8 in high school hybrid. So I just have to, in this case, look at other districts. Our sense was comfortably staying in remote till that Thursday, gave us several days to judge and assess. I think that is a case we can take advantage of being a bit smaller district, 4 buildings. We have, less maneuver pieces to worry about. So that's what we thought about. But principals, you could add to this, because we talked a lot about it. Ken, I don't know if you want to add to this, or Tracy.
I think the other idea behind this decision being that it gives us a chance to take a look at staffing, which it was one of the big drivers for that shift to remote. So it's enough time to make sure that we're positioned well to be able to move forward or potentially make some adjustments versus coming back that first day. And then I think, Gina, to your question about the 2 weeks, I think we're looking to get at least some students back into the buildings and back into an in-person routine as soon as possible. We felt like those couple of days gave us a buffer to make sure we have a very solid plan and can do that thoughtfully and safely while not keeping us out for a more extended period of time.
Bill, can you throw up your memo one more time? Please. Thank you.
And I did add in here, as I left it off, the social distancing metrics piece. And I did, under February 8th, just make it complete that middle school and high school would be continuing hybrid full day. Not here is the special ed piece, as Tracy discussed it, because that would apply to multiple grades. A question we have here, and is this 19th versus 25th? And I think that's really the sense of, as we understand what it means to bring back in fully, a couple of grades, that's a number of students and staff, whether the turnaround time of 2 weeks to understand what's happening or a bit longer is necessary. That's the 19th or 25th.
How are the staff feeling about, the staff are fully on board with this, I assume?
I can speak to that. The staff is very anxious. I think the staff, as in all districts, the staff is quite anxious. I think their preference would be to, as much as possible, stay in hybrid. And I know, Ken, you've been in most recent conversation with the leadership of the WTA. Do you want to speak to that, please?
Sure. So I did provide a heads up to the leadership of the WTA today. I did not get any initial reactions at this point. I think, following this meeting, we may get more information reactions. I know Laura has touched base in her building with a couple of staff members, so she may be able to add more there. Laura, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I think they're understandably very nervous. I did.
I mean, I wasn't asking so much about how they feel now, because I know how nervous they are, but more about this schedule, about, you know, I mean, we don't know what life is going to be like by February 8th or January 19th, but have they seen this?
I mean,
Has the staff seen this?
No, we've not run it by the staff district-wide. At Hurlbut, which is most directly affected most immediately, Laura's had conversations with those teachers most directly affected. Tracy has been on an ongoing basis talking with a number of the staff in the special ed realm. The rest of the staff have not. We've not put this out in that regard.
Has there been communication to teachers as far as, and not just teachers, but all school staff, about when they'll have access to the vaccines?
Part of some of the updates I was going to come back to on the quarantine and the vaccines is that's a big open question right now. We are working with the Westport Weston. I'll do a quick update on vaccines because it relates to this. Let me be direct. The sense right now, if we're expecting vaccines to make a difference for us in our schooling scenarios, maybe any earlier than February or even March, it's not going to have an effect. Because right now, while teachers are in that 1B group, it's still not clear when 1B will have the vaccines available. We had talked about this in the task force earlier. We learned on Friday that while, thanks to Phil and others, we had gotten in all the necessary information 8, 10, 12 weeks ago to the Westport Weston Health District, statewide, the software that was being used was not the same software that was then used to determine the allotment. So it all, as of Friday, we learned from Westport Weston Health District, it had to go re-entered. And so we've jumped in to help get that done. So another district not far from us, an urban district, was informed over the weekend their teachers may not get vaccines till May. Now, we don't know if that's accurate. Right. So there's a lot of information flying out there. And we are persisting through Fran Rabinowitz and others to make sure that educators are, and to think of students first and concentric circle out within district so that we prioritize those closest to students and move outwards from those who'd be eligible for vaccines. So
it would go through the health department, not through each individual district. It would go through each of the health departments in the state.
Correct, but we have to coordinate as we have. We coordinated in early fall. We coordinated West. It was running through the health districts. So we sent as all our data into the health district. Then there was the understanding, well, actually you have to use a whole new software package, basically. So that's all I had to get, and that's not their error, it's not our error, it's up the ladder error. And so we're now fixing that. But that's, I mean, the vaccines are out there, but some things you're reading about or hearing about in terms of deployment issues, you know, we're seeing that. So the vaccines will be there, but it's not going to be as early as next month. They may be able to fast track some things, but I mean, we have to make this plan here, assuming we were without the vaccines.
Understood. I just didn't know where we stood with like timing.
No, yeah, but it's a great question, Gina. I had as a critical update because this is my first chance with the board and the community to give that update. And we also know that one of the vaccines, at least you get, 2 doses before you start to see an effect. And even with the vaccine, we still need to follow all the practices of masking, social distancing, and all the rest. But it would make a big difference to our staff.
So this is going to be unpopular, but then again, any way you come down on this is unpopular. But Laura, I know the kids, the little ones, we know I'm always advocating for the little ones, but they need to have in-person classes. I know it. But January 6th is not that far after what we will assume will be a Christmas surge. Just like the Thanksgiving surge we're seeing now. And I would love your thoughts on this, your honest thoughts, but I know I can hear parents shrieking in their living rooms right now as they listen to me because, and you know, as we all know, we're getting 100 letters a day saying, how come our kids aren't in school? And we're getting 100 letters a day saying, how come our kids are in school? So the unpopular question is, how can we feel confident putting the kids back in school, and not more importantly, equally as importantly, the teaching staff back in school so close after a Christmas surge?
That's a great question. And I do think that speaks to why we're looking at stepping in a grade level at a time, because we don't know what that surge will look like. We're already in the high risk range, which, you know, everything I've seen, all the recommendations, all of the health guidance is for reduced in-person learning.
Yep.
That being said, you know, ELC has been in throughout. That's the benefit of small class sizes, you know, where social distancing is easier to manage and it's less people in a room. So they've been in throughout very successfully.
Great.
You know, it couldn't have gone any better with ELC. We do want to prioritize kindergarten, you know, for just the reasons you say. They are our youngest learners. They are least independent. Although I have to tell you, I'm very impressed with the learning that has, the teaching and learning that has been happening throughout. I mean, they really are engaged. They're, I mean, just being on a kindergarten Zoom is an experience to behold. I mean, it's just, there's so much joy and energy and excitement about the learning, and they are learning and they're reading and they're doing their math and they're holding up their, you know, their assignments to their teachers so they can see. So it, you know,
Bless their hearts, honestly.
Yeah, it is great. And the teachers have been, you know, wonderful, and it really have, we've learned so much since the beginning of the year. When I think back to March, I mean, we have just evolved into such a different educational program right now, which is exciting to be a part of. But to go back to your question, I do think that's why it's important to step in the grades and not to just hope for the best and go all back in and hope we don't have, you know, people getting sick in a massive outbreak. I think, you know, we need to be thoughtful about bringing kindergarten in, you know, and I'm looking at what else we can do in the building to you know, help with those mitigating strategies. And then by a little bit later in January, I think we'll have a better sense of that. And
yeah, I think that's right. And because you have so few students, by stepping in that way, you can maintain the safety, the distance you need. I think it's really important to say right here at this meeting and every day between now and when they're back in school, that this could be reversed at any time, and that families ought to prepare themselves for that, so that it's not a big exhale, hooray, the kids are back in school. You know, it really has to be said often, and that this could be changed at any time depending on how things go. So for the record out there.
You know, Taffy, I think that's right. I think one thing that is important is that we have kind of a nominal plan, right? That says, okay, there is a plan to start getting kids back into school full time.
Right.
I think that just saying wait and see is probably not enough. I think
agree.
if we have, you know, I think that we need to have a plan where everyone is, the expectation is that we're stepping through this and we are seeing movement. We're seeing movement every couple of weeks, every month, but we can step back at any time if things get worse. And so, you know, I think everyone would love to see us move faster. I think that, well, not everyone. I guess there, you know, you're right. We do get emails on both sides of this issue, right? But I think having a nominal plan is fine. I also think that what's happening in other districts is, when you really look at it, is that they're, by making a decision around getting all kids back, right? They're really not making a public health decision. What they're saying is that if you don't like it, you have the voluntary distance learning option, right? But what they're not considering is the staff, right? What they are saying is, from the student's perspective, we're going all in. And if you're uncomfortable with that as a parent, you have the option of doing voluntary distance learning. And for some reason, we're really not privy to what's happening at the staff level by them making that decision, right? And that's really that's kind of the missing piece here, right?
Well, I think the other piece is that and I've received emails to this effect that people don't have the option to be in person. They're not choosing to go VDL. They have to go VDL because of the health vulnerabilities of their families or what have you. They have to. They don't have the choice to go back in person. They have to go VDL. So that VDL needs to be top notch and just as equitable and high quality as anything else. So and then if they do go VDL, of course, the staff, as you rightly point out, Tony, the staff doesn't have that option to have their kids VDL because they need to be in the classroom, right?
Yeah. So this is what I'm saying is that everyone would like to see a stepped-up plan to getting the younger learners back into school.
Yep.
And I think that, we all want to see the tendency for us is to probably say, let's try to be aggressive in kind of getting our kids and the younger learners back into school, right? So the issue at hand is going to be, and I think whatever decision is made, there's going to be a huge amount of criticism around that, because I think that the parents of younger learners, for the most part, would like their kids to be in more than less, right?
Yeah.
And my view on this is that whatever it is, we need a nominal plan with some nominal dates so that everyone has an expectation of where we're going, right?
Yeah,
I think, Tony,
and we talked about this obviously on the task force committee. So the administration kind of understood my position and the questions and the train of thought, which was really around Hurlbut and understanding if Hurlbut, and I went back into previous emails to try and put together my own snapshot of Hurlbut from when the year began. And while we've had students and teachers in quarantine in Hurlbut, I could only find one case of a confirmed COVID case. Maybe I missed an email, Laura, but and unfortunately, the dashboard isn't historical. It's just a moment of time. But it is the one school that has had the lowest case rate. And so I'm still questioning if the first graders can maintain that level of social distancing. I know second grade was an issue. But if kindergarten and first grade can still maintain that level of social distancing, why is there the 2-week lag between those two grades? And I'm still not understanding, Bill, what is the metric that you're then going to present for first grade to say, okay, we are safe now, first grade can go back to school full time?
Well, again, with every superintendent in the country, there's no specific number. It's a mixture of looking at sets of information. I'm just going to give it to you straight. It's saying along that chart, it's saying where are we regionally, even if it's upticking still, let's say we're moving from 61 to 70, that's at first. And we look at Weston. If Weston's staying, still up in the red zone, up in the 30s or so, but then it goes to your exact point. Are we seeing spread as we gradually bring in more students and staff, more density, because we have had staff positives. We have staff positives that result in the need to quarantine, and we have student positives. So the result is the people in the building who may then be infected, and then those who get exposed, because we've had, and Laura can speak to it, we've had whole grades go out for 14 days in Hurlbut, and that may have been tied to staff or student. But it's looking at what's the degree of exposure we've had as we bring more in, and is it staying kind of where we were? Then we say, all right, we can handle this. And if we're not having complete, very strong opposition from our public health and medical advisors, but saying, all right, just keep going, then we'd bring more in. And then that's the first grade, because there we can do the social distancing. There's that larger density, the number in the building. If we can, by mid-January, say we can bring in the first grade and we're still holding to it, then we say, let's now do that heavier lift on the second grade and then third through fifth, where unless we're going to add staff and spread students out, which is a significant investment, we're going to have to be comfortable with closer quarters. But by the time we hit late January, we'll have a much better handle on that.
Do you know when we were all back in for those 2 to 3 weeks, do you have a snapshot of what Hurlbut looked like during those 2 to 3 weeks? Did we have any confirmed cases?
Yeah, we had a staff exposure during that. We can go back and pull that out if you'd like. We did have staff exposure, and that was when we did have the first grade go out. And some of it is exposure we had the soccer program issue, and that affects it can come in a variety of ways, and we have to deal with that.
Yeah, I just, I always go back to the American Academy of Pediatrics just to see what updates they have put on their website. And they have actually not updated from their original stance. They've actually, as of 12/17, they actually put out an update with regards to sports, but they have not updated their original stance that children need to be in school. And so, listen, my position. I said it multiple times during the task force meeting. I think that we have the VDL option. It is based on the most recent survey. Parents are happy with that option. And if given the opportunity, we need to just capitalize on every day that we can to get the students back in school. And we know that we can safely for first grade with social distancing guidelines. So I'm just questioning the 2-week delay for first grade.
We actually don't have 6 feet social distancing in first grade. Kindergarten is a little easier because the rooms for the most part are larger. In kindergarten, the shapes of the room, the size of the room are much larger than the first grades. So we do have more space. One of the considerations and the concerns about increased density is the times when the students have their masks off, which is the greatest risks for transmission. And those are the lunch times. Snack time, there's a little bit of, more flexibility with, because we can kind of work with that within the classroom, but the lunch times are when the students have their masks off, and then you have a room full of children who are not 6 feet apart that are eating with their masks off. That's challenging. We're also in the winter months now. We're not outside as much as we were even just a month ago. We're blessed with a beautiful large campus, and we were outside quite a bit, mask breaks, moving around, PE outside. We are now in winter months, and we're going to be indoors, for sometimes all day, with limited opportunities for, masks breaks with the whole class. So that's also a consideration. The lunch times I know are usually a very big concern for our staff as well, because that's when they feel the most exposed, when they're monitoring and supervising a room full of students who have their masks off.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, Laura. I think, those are certainly points that we want to consider and be thoughtful about. But I mean, I have to say on this one, I think I agree with Ruby. It would sure be nice to see as many of the Hurlbutters in as possible, as soon as possible. We spend so much time looking at the public health metrics and the public health standards and discussing public health. And when I look at Bill's chart and all the criteria we're looking on there, I see public health again, but I don't see social and emotional health. And when I think about this winter that we're starting now, and these young kids who are not having any sport activities. They're not going to be playing outside in the yard as much. They're not going to be interacting with their peers as much. I think the classroom is such an important place for them to be. So I do appreciate the flexibility with this plan that everyone has put forward. I've certainly been in meetings and I've seen this document evolve from different places to where it is today. And I think it's a great improvement. It's also a great sign of collaboration and thought and communication with different stakeholders. So I would encourage everybody to just keep thinking about this and let's see where we can evolve with it. I also wanted to mention one other point too. I mean, in hearing Bill speak about the vaccination schedules and I think that this pandemic is looking to last a lot longer than any of us anticipated back when we were planning for the beginning of the school year. And, last year we certainly were caught off guard with a very sudden end to the school year of in-person learning in March. Not knowing when and how this will end, we do have the advantage right now of being able to plan ahead and plan for worst case scenarios. And I think we should spend some time thinking about the transitional years in the upper schools too. So we have this document that's talking about, prioritizing the youngest learners and children with IEPs. And I think that definitely needs to be the priority right now. But as soon as we start moving forward with those goals, I think we need to start thinking about the kids coming into the high school. We heard last year how hard of a transition that was for those rising eighth graders, those rising ninth graders, current eighth graders, rising sixth graders, current fifth graders, and see if we can think about creative ways to make sure that they're prepared for a social emotional change in terms of the school and academic change. I just want to make sure that we can take advantage of the fact that we have some planning and some time to add those individuals into our planning document.
Well, I mean, principals, this might be a quick, good moment. Tracy also, I mean, we do worry about those transitions. And I think we just have to redouble those efforts as Melissa's asking, but that is something, we've been working hard on the last several years. And any quick insights for the board on that point, because that goes on. So we've got the approaches, we've got the framework. I think Tracy, as a newcomer, has observed within special ed, we can even do that better, and we'll look at that for sure. But I don't know if anyone wants to reflect on that, because it's a really good observation and request by Melissa.
I can just speak to, from a special education standpoint, that's something that we've already started talking about. At each of the levels, it's been flagged as a priority for my work with the two assistant directors. And I think it's going to be a longer process this year because there's been changes in schedule and routines. And so it's not as clear cut. So we are mapping out a process for each of the buildings, and we'll be working on that really beginning in January.
We were fortunate. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I guess I would say that, we actually were talking today, our team, about it's that time, 8th grade registration, and the timeline for that. And it just almost seems surreal. But, Dan and I have been having some conversations about how to get the best possible outcomes from our 9th graders, because it was very challenging. I mean, they're sort of in the building, but not really. It's been really hard. I think one of the best things that we did this year that everyone unanimously at the school, parents, staff, and students agree on, is this extended learning hour every day. And so how can we formalize something like that, if it's not on a daily basis, but to formalize it as part of our schedule, and then to work and start setting the groundwork in 8th grade so that they understand how easy it is to access it, and that it's, by accessing it, our very brightest students access it. There's nothing wrong with reaching out and getting support and connecting with your teachers. So I do believe that there are many future opportunities with what we have learned through this pandemic of how to do things better once we get back to our new normal. Anything from, as Tony was saying, that the idea of all the way that we're teaching and how much better we're getting at it, to how can we get the best possible outcome for all students in our different interventions, anywhere from tier 1 to tier 3.
I was just going to say that we were lucky in a way early last spring, late winter. We were able to have the 8th graders go up to the high school before we closed in March. So they had a chance to speak with the counselors, to speak with the students. That's something we've been doing and trying to build on that transition program with the high school. It just depending on what the scenario is at the time, and trying to, as you said, Melissa, trying to make the best of the situation so we can truly prepare those students for a successful transition, socially, emotionally, and academically. And then to do the same thing with the 5th graders to the 6th grade. Unfortunately, we did not get to have that visit in person. So we made videos and video tours and meet the admins and more meetings specifically for those parents and for those students who were new to the middle school. But you're right to remind us that that time is now. This is the transition planning time right now.
Mm-hmm. You know, I think Melissa's comments around the fact that this is, it's something that it's not a decision made at one meeting right now. It's one where there's a framework here, and over the course of the next several weeks before we get to that date, I think that there's going to be a lot of updates, further thinking between the leadership team and the board in terms of understanding exactly how this is going to evolve. I think that once we get to the first week in January, things may look different. Things will look different than they are today. They may be worse, they may be better. But one thing's for sure is that this conversation around how we're going to sequence this over the course of January and February has to continue during the month of December and during the holidays, so that we really understand exactly what we're facing in the first week of January and how we're going to actually step through this. Any other comments before we move on to the next agenda item?
Well, Tony, not to lengthen the process, but as with other districts, they're all announcing what the return plan is, and I need to do that tomorrow. I owe that to the families to let them know at least the front end of this. Because we need to confirm that the 7th is this plan is, because your educators at the Hurlbut level and with Tracy are right where you want them. They want those students in person, and we've got to begin working on that. I think.
Well, Bill,
isn't it my understanding that it is your decision, Bill, and not ours? I mean, we're here to listen and advise, but I understood that it is, yours to decide. Sorry, were you going to say that, Tony?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say.
And we actually have a direct match here. I just want, sometimes let's Heifetz sets get up on the balcony. So you all know who Heifetz is, but if you get up on the balcony, we all agree. We all agree in person is better. And thank you, Taffy, for asking about the staff, because I will say in their heart of hearts, they know in person is better. But that's to say right now, they're very anxious, as every educator in the United States and internationally is. And so they need to know that we know they're anxious, and their preference may not be in person right now, but every family in Weston has to know that their children are going with people who want to see them in person. So what we'll announce tomorrow, and I'm going to confer with Laura, I'm going to confer with Tracy, because they're most pivotal at this point for that first week, is I think we want to announce that it's at ELC, K, and special ed, and we'll do some thinking on that first grade and what that time shift is, because you all have been very, very clear. And we don't disagree at all. It's just the issue of timing and phasing relative to that larger public health and medical environment we're in. And we've been pretty bold here relative to WIS to even have WIS on this list as of early February. So I hope you agree. We'll have an announcement out tomorrow, be lean and clean, at least on this front end. But I think it's helpful to WIS because we've not done this before. To say, here are dates we're aiming at for other adjustments, but we may have to be flexible, but at least give everybody something to point to. And as general as some of the criteria are, and I did add to it the SEL, Melissa, that here are those 6, because way back when there were 3, health and safety, academic growth, and social emotional learning. So just to say, those are the ones we'll look at. Volunteer distance learning cross-cuts everything that is always there, as does the special ed piece.
Yeah, and I would, before you go public, I would have another internal discussion around first grade. I think that's another, I guess to think about that a little bit. But that, as a board, we're informed by, a number of different constituents, right? We hear from the teachers, we hear from the leadership team, we hear from the parents. And we, our collective views, right, are informed to some extent at 10,000 feet by a number of constituents. We're not in the weeds, right? And so, that's, at the end of the day, that's how we get our, we come together, and that's how we collect our views, right? And so, what I'm getting from this discussion is that if you take another look at first grade and work on that sooner versus later, that might be a good thing to do. But again, you're there every day doing what you do, and you have a better view at it than we do as a board member. But this is our collective views of things that we're hearing, right?
I had a comment and a question for Laura. My comment is that I think everyone should be outside as much as possible. I don't think anyone should be inside all day, certainly not kids at Hurlbut. But my question is, these kids, this is like starting a new year for them. So especially, they're young, they haven't seen their classmates all the time, they haven't had to get up this early, they haven't had to do so many of the things, and they haven't had to follow so many protocols. They're completely out of practice. So what's the plan to kind of address all of that, putting all the academics aside? Because, I always say, I think your mental health is more important than your physical health. So for me, this is a mental health decision. It's mentally healthy for them to be socializing with other people. But, in the course of that, they're totally out of practice.
We find that they do transition back in fairly quickly. I'm sorry, Hillary, were you still speaking? There's a little bit of a lag in the internet.
No, that was my question.
Okay. After any break, they usually transition back fairly quickly. After Thanksgiving, an extended break when first grade was out for remote learning for a period of time, they come back in, the masks, they're right back into it. I mean, I don't have any concerns about them being out of practice with being in school in masks. It's just part of life right now. And being back in school, the teachers are very skilled at easing them back into the day. We spend a lot of time with discussions, interactions, reconnecting with peers, reconnecting with teachers. And, we're very much into our routines. So there's a predictable schedule. The teachers review that. So the students know what's coming. And I think that's why we did see when we went to all remote, it was a fairly smooth transition because the students had already been doing a remote day on their off hybrid day when they were learning from home. It was the same schedule. So they weren't relearning new routines. I think the routines are important. So even though they haven't been in the routines maybe for a week and a half because they're on break, it's the same routine. Students who are coming into school will be coming in.
Students
I'm sorry, say that again.
Have they all been together every day, all day? Isn't all of that
Yeah, so the 3 weeks when we were all in earlier in the year was a very easy transition. They were so excited to see each other.
Okay.
teachers know that, and they build in those opportunities to acknowledge it, discuss it, celebrate it, while of course keeping our VDL students connected as well. But it's a big part of our morning meeting discussions, tapping into that energy and that excitement.
Tony, do we need to put another meeting on the calendar to discuss scenarios prior to the 7th and or the 18th?
Well, I think we should, we could put a special meeting on the calendar very, right towards the very end of the break, right? You have to remember, we do have, we do have the budget presentation sort of that first week in January, the first day we're back. But we can actually put a special meeting together at some point. Why don't we do this?
I think that's helpful only because, when the last memo came out from Bill in terms of going to remote, one of the major feedback that we got was just we needed more information on how and why this decision was made. And I think if we talk publicly about what are the metrics, what's going on, what are we looking at, there's no room for miscommunication.
What's that Monday? That Monday is what, the 5th?
Monday's the 4th.
What's that?
Monday's the 4th, and we have right now a task force meeting sitting in there. You could set some 4th. I'd urge you not to do something on the break.
Yeah, I would do it. I would probably, if we do a special meeting, I would probably do something on the 4th. Yeah. So let me take that away and potentially do something for the 4th. I think that's a good idea.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, let's move to the next topic. A little bit back to the future. Update of the town facilities optimization committee. Thank you, Gail and Rick, for your patience. Hopefully this was fun for you.
I think it's just me at this point, Tony. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, we lost Rick. Okay. So let me give you a bit of a background first on this. So in 2017, Silver Petrocelli did their fertility study, which basically had two parts. They looked at the facilities conditions, which was formed the basis of our 10-year capital plan. They also did a piece on what it would cost to do programmatic updates as well. After that, we actually had a phase 2 study, which basically we're looking at a 3-school campus and what that would involve. There was different permutations on different 3-school campus configurations. All of them actually would involve some significant construction. I think that phase 2 came up with some interesting ideas. It came up with the conclusion that if we actually ended up wanting to configure the campus in a 3-school configuration, that it would definitely involve some construction. But I don't think that the answer was there. So a decision was made to actually expand this to a townwide committee to look at not only the school campus, but also look at optimization in context of town facilities as well. And so there was a facilities optimization committee that was put together. It included stakeholders from the town, from the town leadership, finance committee. Hillary and I are serving on there. Ken Craw is on there as well. Rick Bertese, who was good enough to chair this. He's not with us now. But he basically comes with a huge amount of experience in managing real estate. I think he managed Deutsche Bank's real estate portfolio in Europe and recently manages Bridgestone's real estate portfolio as well. And so he comes to us with considerable experience. Gail, who you know is former first select person, has been playing an instrumental role in leading this this committee. She's here tonight to really talk about the work that the committee's done and the next steps for the committee. This has been the update was done at the last facilities committee meeting, and so this was a good point in the work of the committee to actually address the full board, to talk about what the committee has done so far and what work we're going to do in the future. So let me hand it over to Gail.
Thank you, Tony. As those of you who have been involved for quite a while, you know that the facilities discussion has been going on for at least 10 years or so. And it not only was revolved around what to do with the schools and whether we should consolidate the campus, but also what to do with the school and town employees that are housed at the annex as well as the Jarvis building. So given the Silver Petrocelli report, given the needs of town staff, the Board of Selectmen wisely felt that it was important to create a committee that takes a holistic approach to the whole town so that we can implement a plan that will be relevant for at least 25, 30 years. At least that's what our plan is. So the Facilities Optimization Committee has gone through a process where we interviewed several different consultants to get their thoughts and feelings on what we're trying to do. Those meetings were incredibly helpful. They all had a chance to tour the facilities, thanks to the school's facility staff. And we're at the point now where we'd like to issue a request for proposal. So the main questions that the committee is tasked to ask that we would like to answer is, given the current enrollment trends and expectations, does it make sense to look at potentially reducing the Board of Education's footprint and going from a 4-school model to a 3-school model? And if we do that, what are the benefits to that versus not having any benefits to doing so? So that's first and foremost. Academically, how that plays out is obviously our primary concern. But we also want to know, will there be any cost savings if we make this move? Just as important is, how do we get staff to work in a location with staff members that they should work with on a regular basis? So for example, for the town right now, we have land use in the annex. They work very closely with employees at town hall, such as the town clerk and the tax assessor. We also have social services and youth services in the annex. They work very closely with senior services. How can we get that to work a little bit more closer? And how do we get Parks and Rec to interface with those groups as well? On the school side, you have half of your staff in one building, half of your staff in another building. And the annex, at least in my opinion, and what most of the consultants who came through said, is that it's nearing the end of its useful life. It was put together as a kinderland when my kids were in kindergarten. They just turned 25. So temporary building that was supposed to last 10 years has lasted a little bit longer than that. And I'm really fearful that if we don't start making some plans, we're going to be in a situation where a building is falling apart and we don't have any plans to go forward for those staff who are in it. On the town side as well, we have the Jarvis facility, which is an antique house, which houses 3 to 4 employees. It really is not a good use of that facility or that land location. But in addition to those 2 main questions that we'd like to ask, we really feel as a group that if we are going to take a look at the facilities, the school and town facilities, particularly the school facilities, that we really do need to go back and take a look and see if we're going to make any modifications to accommodate this switch to a 3-school footprint. Are there other renovations that should take place at the same time? So for example, should we consider other changes that might have an impact on the physical security, sustainability, such as the carbon footprints of the school, water and waste reductions, health and safety, daylight enhancements, MEP improvements, things along that nature, which I know were looked at the Silver Petrocelli report, but we really do feel that perhaps coming in with under a different perspective might be a good idea. Also, are there other renovations or recommendations that we're seeing that would enhance the students' 21st century learning environment? And that goes hand in hand with programmatic upgrades and other changes that might be desired by the Board of Education. Because if we're going to start looking at making those renovations, I think it would be helpful to know ahead of time what would be the Board of Ed's priorities and put that in the request for proposal. The three things that I just added last would be considered add alternates to the initial proposal, so that when it goes to the Board of Finance for funding, the priority is really to figure out what our campus should look like and what we should do with the staffing. And then in addition to that, as an add alternate, are what are the other changes that we should consider to the Board of Education buildings at the same time. So the committee would like to have specifics as to what we should ask these consultants to look for when we issue this RFP. Right now, we have reviewed it with the Board of Selectmen. We're waiting for comments back from the town administrator. And then once we get his comments back, as well as your comments back, the committee will get together and hopefully bring forth a proposal to the Board of Selectmen to issue this RFP right after sometime probably the end of January. So with that, I will open the floor to questions.
Yeah, one thing before we ask questions is during this process, you know, when we looked at optimizing our town facilities, I kind of looked at it in a more myopic way. But after hearing some of the presentations from some of the consultants that really answered the RFQ, right? I think we have an opportunity here to look at this as a more generational type of project, where we can ultimately try to see if we can actually bring our facilities to what is, 21st century educational standards. I'm not sure at the end of the day whether the financial ability to do that, where that is with respect to the town. But I think this is an opportunity to look at things in a different way than I think we kind of started looking at this, to see if there is a way in which we can actually set a path to really create a set of facilities that ultimately will really serve us for the next few decades. That's what these projects really are all about. They're not about, patching things up. These are more about, optimizing, but also making sure that we actually address the facilities needs that are going to be, that are going to be required to actually service our students for a number of years to come. And that, that's a lot, it's going to take a lot of work. I mean, this starts with the consultants, but ultimately comes back to the Board of Ed, which ultimately, has the final decision here on this. But anyway.
Just to talk about process going forward, Tony, to build on what you said. So right now, what we're looking to do is issue this RFP, hopefully right after the end of January at some point. After we get those responses, it'll go to the Board of Finance to determine what portions of those responses to the RFP they would like to fund. According to Rick, our chair, he thinks it's going to take probably 6-9 months, maybe even a year, to take a look at all of our facilities and come back with one well-organized, concise plan as to where we should go with our facilities. And that will also entail a lot of meetings, not only with the Board of Education and the Board of Selectmen, but with the public as well. We think it's important to get their input. So there will be at least 2 meetings, 2 public forums with the public so that they can weigh in on this. So we're not even looking, if the Board of Finance approves all this, we're not even looking to go out and bond for at least, I want to say, 2 years probably. And that coincides with the timing that the bond from the WIS and the high school renovations will be coming offline. So we have an opportunity to really make those adjustments to bring our buildings up from the 1960s to present at a time when I think it'll be financially palatable to the town. So that's what we're trying to kind of work on this. We're very cognizant of the cost that it takes to bring our buildings up to speed. We feel it's incredibly important, but we also want to look and see if perhaps if we reduce the footprint and take one of the school buildings offline, whether we have a chance to make some savings that might help offset some of those costs.
Can I just make a comment that may have a question in it? I'm not sure. I just really appreciate, Gail and Tony, that this work should not be done in isolation around what matters vis-a-vis buildings, but rather should be closely aligned to how we educate our children and what they need. We've talked, I know Victor brought up some time ago, international baccalaureate formatting for schools. And it's something that maybe down the road we begin to think more about. Well, that requires a certain rethinking about how our facilities are equipped for that. We know, and I'm speaking with my curriculum chair hat on, we know that having kids of different ages under one roof rather than separated by building is really, really advantageous to all of those kids, old and young, to be under one roof. So I'm not afraid of putting younger kids in the same building as older kids because it can be incredibly beneficial. I'm not talking about Hurlbut age kids, but so as we look ahead, I really want to just put an exclamation point next to the idea that this really ought to be closely aligned to our long-term academic vision and goals for the district, and that it's not just a fiscal question. Thanks, Gail.
Absolutely.
Yeah, more than a question, I just want to, thank Gail and Rick. I can't think for a better group of people to be looking at this. And I know it seems that this has been going on for such a long time, but I think we're at a point where this is being done correctly. And I sat into Rick's presentation, and I think it's important to say that one of the things is to when we talk about the changes we want to make, one word that stuck in my mind, he said, it's not a wish list, right? And that talks to the point about being fiscally responsible about this process. But yeah, there's certain things that once you break ground on some sort of renovations, there's things that can be done rather than doing them individually. So by looking at the campus, the town buildings, the programmatic changes we want to think about the students. It's a long, arduous work, but I really respect what Gail and Rick are doing.
It's also less expensive once you have the contractors bidding on a project. If you put in all the work that you want to do on the campus rather than piecemeal it. And some of the decisions that you make have an impact on what you can do later down the road. So that's why you want to make sure that anything that you think should be included is included from the get-go, because once some decisions are made down the road, sometimes you can't always go back and retrofit the space. Mm-hmm. So we want to make sure that as we do this, that we are going to bring our schools up to where quite frankly, where I think they should be.
Yeah. Can I make one other comment? Sorry, Tony, one last comment, and then I promise to be quiet. The other thing we need to integrate in our thinking around this is that because our town resources are so limited, the campus really is takes up an enormous amount of geography in our town, physically and figuratively. And that as we think about the campus writ large, it ought to be a place where community lives as well. In other words, how do we integrate into our school campus places for families to be, or events to happen, where town and school become a much closer, an integrated place to be. We're getting into the weeds now, but I'm just saying again at the outset of this.
I think Taffy, you have a very important point, because I always thought if you kind of say, Weston's about education, I think, I always think about Weston, whether you're a young learner or an old learner, or you're a senior citizen, it's really about education. And I think your point, whether it's a mindset or a theme or an actual facilities configuration, I think it is what Weston seems to be all about, right?
Right.
And I do think that there are opportunities that if it's determined that it is preferable to go to a 3-school campus, to bring the community more into the campus in different ways by utilizing that empty building, so to speak.
Gail, I'm so glad on page 3 of this document that you included that if we do consolidate from 4 facilities to 3 facilities, that we're going to do without significant capital investment, because I think the issue that I had with the Silver Petrocelli proposal was everything had a $40 million price tag to it, every single option, which confused me, because I was like, well, then how are we optimizing if we're just now paying for an extra arm and a leg onto each school? So thank you for that, because that should be the tone when we go forward. But my question is under the scope of services, under 2A, where you talk about if the answer is yes, and if we are going to consolidate or close. My question is, how detailed do we want to have the conversation with the consultant to repurpose, or how to repurpose, or the cost around closing? And with those conversations, are we expecting the consultant to think out of the box to have a regionalized center for something? I know Melissa and Tony both had conversations with Tracy's predecessor around offering some SPED services, bringing some SPED services in-house and regionalizing that, or maybe thinking outside of the box on the other end of the spectrum, going for the gifted and talented program. So I guess my question is, what level of detail are we asking the consultant to produce in terms of repurposing that 4th building?
I totally agree with you, Ruby. And a big part of what the consultant is going to have to figure out is what we do with that 4th building, because there's a cost associated with the building, whether there are students in it or not. Right. And it may, if the school's not using it anymore, it may come off the Board of Ed's balance sheet, but it's going on to the town budget balance sheet, because someone has to pay, for the electricity, even if it's, the usage is a lot less from not having the building there. You still have to make sure the envelope of the building is tight. Otherwise, you're destroying another building. As far as repurposing it, I think that those are conversations that the Facilities Optimization Committee started having. The first level of conversation is, well, if we don't need, for example, Hurlbut to be utilized as an elementary school, does it make sense to put school or town staff into that building so that we don't have to build additions onto central office and to town hall to accommodate those employees? What other uses are there? This is the first I'm actually hearing about potential for regionalized services. I'm just a little bit surprised, because when I was first selectman and I brought up that concept, it was shot down as a hard no, full stop, we're not going there. So if this is conversations that you guys are having, please let me know, and we will incorporate that into discussions with.
I think I would view them as more brainstorming than
brainstorming. Yeah.
More brainstorming around things, but rather than specific conversations. But certainly we have to continue doing those kinds of things.
I just think the how and the why we repurpose that fourth building could lead us to different decisions that we make collectively for the entire district. That's all.
Absolutely. And we also have to be cognizant of, what happens if the school population balloons again?
Right.
When my kids first started kindergarten, we had portables all over the place. We want to make sure that whatever we do, we're not getting back to that kind of situation.
Right.
So if it means, for example, keeping North House as it is and just shuttering it so that perhaps if you need extra classrooms, you can immediately within a year go back and use them. I mean, that's a discussion that we have to have with the Board of Ed as well as the consultants. So I think that they're cognizant of it, particularly as we're looking at enrollment numbers during this crazy COVID time. And we see an increase in people coming into our town, but not necessarily those who are actually in school right now. We don't necessarily know what that's going to be 4 or 5 years down the road for when we're planning. So I think we just have to, at this point, kind of keep an open end to that. But really what I think it was important for the committee to know prior to issuing this RFP is, are there specific things that we should ask the consultant to study? For example, we can certainly put in there if you want to have a discussion about utilizing extra space for regionalization or for, I know this has been discussed and decided not to do, but perhaps put a nursery school somewhere or whatever it is. But also, do you want to include, like, for example, the science labs is something that I hear over and over again is a serious need in the middle school. So if we are going to hire consultants and if they have to make some changes to accommodate moving 5th grade to the middle school, should there be a second look at perhaps retrofitting classrooms or making renovations to accommodate updated science classes? I'm just putting that out there as an example. I mean, it's for you to tell me, not for me to tell you. But
I think in one of the tacks that we took, or at least that I suggested to do originally, is to not really be specific around that, but wait until the consultant comes on board and kind of start and making sure that they work with the administration and or the board to look at some of those things when they do come on board. Because right now it's very hard to actually, specify in real specificity what the laundry list of programmatic, upgrades might look like, right?
Yeah, but Tony, you also can't ask you can't get a consultant to price out things to be determined. Do you know what I'm saying? So
no, it's true.
I think the more specificity you have, the easier it'll be for Board of Finance to approve all of these add-ons.
Yeah.
And I think what I'm hearing, Gail, is you're sort of giving us permission to dream a little bit. And I don't mean dream in Technicolor, but to absolutely.
A realistic dream. Let's put it that way.
What's that?
A realistic dream.
Right. To absolutely say, we've been talking about, offering pre-K in grander terms for some time. We've been talking about A, B, C, and D. So can we put those down? Because we know that even if we lay down 10 ideas, that 10% of them might go through, or maybe 20%, but it's worth putting them down, I think.
Well, this is supposed to go out when? It's going to go out in
assuming 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Ish.
So maybe we could take a closer look, perhaps through the leadership team first, and then through the facilities committee, take a closer look if there's anything we want to actually add to the RFP before it goes out.
I just have one, this is kind of a ticky-tack question, but I think it's an important one as far as overall space usage. Education continually evolves, whether you have, K-5 buildings, K-2 buildings, K-8 buildings, things change. The design of buildings changed. Security concerns drove the way schools were built post Sandy Hook. Is the pandemic going to drive school design as far as space in classrooms, space, more space in cafeterias, more open indoor space in northern climates? My concern is we're entering in the planning phase of what is supposed to be, the future of our buildings for the next several decades to come. We're going to be on the front end of trying to address some of those questions in those designs.
Great
So
question.
what sort of parameters as far as classroom spacing, cafeteria spacing, indoor open space, etc., are we going to build into this?
Great
Well,
question.
I think that those are all the things that the consultant needs to come back and tell us. And that's one of the reasons why we kind of need to know the full scope before we start this, because what you're saying is incredibly important, Gina. 5 years from now, we won't be dealing with the coronavirus epidemic anymore, God willing. But what's going to come on next? I mean, after Sandy Hook, we had lots of conversations about the security of buildings and how playgrounds are built and where playgrounds are built and other issues, which I'm certainly not going to discuss in public session. But the point is that these consultants that we're working with, or at least we hope to be working with, will have to have the answers to those questions. Like, how do you design schools 5 years from now, given what we're currently facing? And that's why we want to do this once, do it carefully, and hire the right people so that we get all the answers so that we can move forward. But you're right. I mean, I look at things like the size of hallways, and some of the hallways, as Silver Petrocelli pointed out, particularly in the middle school, are very narrow. You would never design a hallway like that. I mean, I'm not in the construction business, but I would just assume that you wouldn't build a school with a hallway like that, because you want to be able to have a certain amount of flow between people. Some of the consultants during the RFQ process showed us things that we didn't even necessarily think about. They had flexible doors that opened up outside, to increase, like double the size of the cafeteria space. And then a big part of it, and all the consultants came in when they talked to us about it, were the energy efficient upgrades that all of the buildings in the school as well as town hall could use to save money down the road, as well as bring more light in, which was a common theme among the participants during the RFQ process. So if we're going to make any of these changes, and if we're going to make a wholesale change to any of our buildings, I think it's wise to just try to get everything out there at once. We could figure out how to phase it in terms of what's best for the students and phase it as to what's best for town financing. But I think that we have to get a whole picture and come up with some plan as to how we can implement it all going forward. Because yes, Taffy, I'm a dreamer too.
Good.
Any other questions for Gail? All right, Gail, we'll take that internally, and we'll before it goes out, we'll basically try to address that part of the RFP.
Okay, great.
Given all the free time we all have at the moment.
All right, guys, thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. And thanks for all your work on this.
Thanks.
All right, where are we?
Alternative pathways.
Tracy, do you want to cue this up? Do you want me to cue it up quickly? Ken, who's going to cue this one up?
I'm happy to do it.
Okay, thank you.
So I know you're all familiar with ESS. It's a program that's been in district for the past few years. And the purpose of the program is to support students who have complex social, emotional, and behavioral needs. And the overarching goal of that program was to provide the support that was needed to ensure or to provide as many opportunities as possible for students to stay within West End so that they are experiencing their education and their extracurricular opportunities within their home community. And I think whenever there's a program that has what I'll call external service providers, the ultimate goal as a district is to build the internal capacity of the people who work in the district to be able to support a program with a similar structure. And that's exactly what the high school team is going to propose tonight. A group of high school leaders, building leaders, our head of counseling, Meredith, who's here this evening, and department chairs have come together and have generated what I think is a really exciting proposal that further embeds this program within the fabric of Weston High School and incorporates the talents of the Weston High School staff in order to meet the needs of our students. I think the key feature of the proposal is that we maintain the level of social, emotional, and behavioral support that's needed for these students. And we also enhance the work that's being done with these students from an academic standpoint. I think there are a number of team members who are excited about this proposal, and I think it just furthers the work that we're doing on behalf of our special education students in district. So Lisa, do you want to jump in?
Sure. Thank you, Tracy. You know, as Tracy said, we had been looking very carefully, I would say, every year at the program ESS. And we are now sort of at a point where we believe that we can provide sort of in-house homegrown program that has increased flexibility and provides the level of personalization for these students, both academically and therapeutically. Our challenge over the last couple of years, and I can let Meredith speak to it, is that, you know, they were provided with therapeutic services within the school. However, there were some academic, what I would call pitfalls along the way with the program. Specifically that students, to be frank, weren't earning the number of credits they would need to graduate because of the way both the program design and working, as we said, with consultants and not really owning the program. So Meredith, why don't you explain a little bit by what we mean specifically with the academic piece and how we think that we can provide a really robust alternative pathway for these students.
Sure. So I think when we thought about ESS and the counseling services they could provide, we were hoping that giving them the students the counseling, the academics would improve as well. And I think over the years, what we've seen is, yes, they're receiving the counseling, but their academics have not improved. We have students who are not achieving the credits that they need to graduate on time and still not passing the classes they need to graduate as well. That also has been a problem with the structure of ESS, with their structure of mandating groups and certain periods of the day for counseling has definitely, unfortunately, hurt some of our students in the ability to take other classes. So we have seen over the years where, unfortunately, some of our students are receiving the counseling services, but their academics are still struggling. So we feel that the model with alternative pathways, where we have CILs who are in charge of the academics for these students, to be a benefit. So they're still going to be receiving counseling services, but they're also going to be receiving academics in smaller environments. They're also going to be having CILs who can break down the courses to the core components and to help them still achieve the academic goals that we need them to do for graduation. So we're going to be hitting both of those components at the same time.
And if I can add, you know, when we look at, for example, sort of the daily life of some of these students, you know, it's hard. It's hard to get some of them in the building. It's hard to get them to class. You know, while on paper it might look like their daily attendance is really good, their period attendance is not good. And that's why that's one of the, you know, Gina had talked at the was the curriculum committee, right, when we proposed it, about what are the evidence indicators that this is going to be successful. One of the things that we continually analyzed for the last several years are things like credits, but also academic growth and academic attendance. So, right now there are, I believe it's 7 students in the program. And 3 of them will be leaving the program. So there's 4 left to continue for the following year, but we're also always looking to identify other students. When a student is in the program, and for example, we have 2 that don't like to come to school on a daily basis or can't arrive on time. Well, in our new program, we've proposed that we would have a paraprofessional dedicated to that program. Because what happens now, quite frankly, is we run around and try to find them in the hallways. Where are they? We got to get them to class, all of that stuff, which, it's challenging. If a family does not want to do the intake with the contracted service or be a part of the therapeutic program, then they are not part of ESS, but they're still our students. So we have students, for example, 2 seniors that I can think of, they're no longer in the program. They are really challenged academically to be able to graduate on time. And we have to continually, help them the best we can between the counseling staff and the administrative staff and the teachers. But they're not part of that program anymore because the parents and the students decided they didn't want to be in it. So with this approach, it really is what I would say, Weston's known for its level of personalization. And by doing it in-house, we can tweak so many aspects of the services that we offer these students. We don't need to have a parental intake. Of course, we want the parents to support the program, but that doesn't mean we don't continue to work with our students. We'll have one of our special ed teachers that's kind of the link, the liaison to the program. Tracy had a great way of describing it as a constellation of services. Everything from involving the transition coordinator to the college and career counselor to the students' school counselors to the CILs who can not only deliver instruction but support if a student was doing an online course, or if a student was actually in the classroom, in the regular classroom, that CIL can provide that support in a block of the academics. So it really is a robust approach, I think, that kind of holistically supports the students better, but mainly gives them the target and the way to graduate, and not, be 3-4 credits short, which some of them are, quite frankly, right now, and they won't graduate on time unless we figure out how to better support them.
Lisa, how does this impact the SIL's daily life because of the huge
Sure.
workload they already have? And yeah.
So the SILs are, the 4 core academic SILs that we're looking at, and we picked those 4 because that's the, quite frankly, the graduation requirements. They have it's a 0.5 teaching part of their schedule. The 0.2 is from that teaching schedule. So they, I think Christine Sincata was at the subcommittee meeting where she said it doesn't interfere with our SIL duties because it's the part of our teaching load. And when you look at the SILs, we selected them. Actually, that's the New Canaan model, if you will. We looked at a lot of different models. Meredith talked to a lot of people. And in New Canaan, they also use their curriculum and instructional leaders. It's because they are so familiar with all the courses and how to scaffold them, how to compact them. Some of them are certified in multiple areas like Jamie Charles and bio and chem, that they're the most flexible that will be able to do it. And they're really excited about it because we had conversations with them. We wouldn't have moved forward unless we had conversations with the key building people that would actually have to implement the services, the program.
Lisa, I know we discussed this. First of all, thank you for being so proactive to bring this in-house, because I think, you guys know your students the best in terms of what works and what doesn't. And whenever you hire an outside party who doesn't know the student, doesn't know the Westonite way, So thank you for that, first of all. Second of all, I know we talked a little bit about the metrics that we're going to use to determine the success and how we didn't necessarily think with what ESS did fit. Do you kind of envision having an annual review that's more individualized? Because if there's, less than, if there's only 5 students right now, you can't really average anything, right? Because like one student can just throw everything off. So is it more of when we, review this program on an annual basis, is it really kind of the movement per child that we're looking at? Yes. Okay.
Yes, most definitely. We would be creating, Meredith and the school counseling work now on student success plans. This is a very individualized, what are the goals for this student, both social, emotionally, and academically? And how can we help that student and support that student to achieve it? And what we learned is that you have to really dig down to the very layer of, being in class, what's the work they're producing, what does that look like, how well they are responding to their therapeutic services. That's a whole nother component. The plus is also bringing it in-house that were pointed out, I think it was Meredith pointed it out, is if let's say someone had said you're proposing one social worker with the program, the CILs and the paraprofessional. What if the social worker isn't in that day? And you look at 6 periods, drop 2 of our regular schedule. We have certain academic blocks. We have a paraprofessional that's back there all the time. But the other really great thing about the program is that every student in Weston High School is assigned a counselor. So those counselors, on a day that, for example, if the social worker isn't here, can also help sort of under the umbrella of the services, because they will have a relationship with the counselor. Currently, if someone is out in the contracted services program, someone from that program comes in. Frankly, the students might not even know the person. The person, actually the substitute showed up the other day. We didn't know at the beginning of the year. Oh, who are you? Oh, I'm going to come if someone is out ill. With that, we don't have to worry about, they're our own people that know our own kids.
And is this going to, is like the social worker, is the reporting, is it reporting up to Tracy or is this program going to be overseen by you, Lisa?
It's in Tracy's budget.
Okay.
But clearly, I would say that we're all involved. Everyone from the assistant director to Tracy, ultimately at the central office level to us. Meredith is the director of counseling. And, it's very important that we all know and are involved in the program, I guess, and that there is oversight. And there has to be, as Tracy keeps telling us, and we're working on it, a transition plan to how to start moving in this direction starting second semester and how that will look.
And then my last question is, what did we do prior to having ESS in place for 5 years? How did we handle this program?
We, students were outplaced, and we did the very best we could. Meredith, do you want to?
Yeah, no, I mean, actually, if you look about 5 years ago, we also did not have a full-time social worker at the high school. We didn't have a dedicated college and career counselor at the high school. So our services over the last 5 years have changed a lot as well. So I know that we were stretched as far as counseling services in the department, trying to deal with some of these students who, I have to say, for a lot of times were school avoidant, school phobic. So we would have our social worker who was part-time trying to do home visits, our school psychologist as well, trying to do some group counseling with some of these students. But I have to say our dynamic and our whole team actually has changed over the last 5 years.
Yes, we should also say that, with our school resource officer, he also helps us with at times home visits. And, before we had this, it was kind of all hands on deck, anybody that could help. I mean, I remember driving out to a home to find out what's going on with someone else to try to get the student in school. We did our Tier 2 Center for Academic Support and Enhancement. Some of the students were in that with a lot of counseling support. But, it was kind of, inventing the wheel as we're doing it.
No, yeah, and I'm asking that question only because when you just look at the overall total, it's an expensive program. But if we were trying to piece it together 5 years ago, and there was outplacement and there was this and there was that, when you kind of do a bottoms up, you're probably in the same realm. So that's what I was trying to get to. So thank you for that.
Yeah, while this is not a budget discussion, one of the things that would be helpful if and when the time comes is that we create a single line item for this so that we can actually track the resources that this is actually using, so that ultimately it doesn't get diluted with everything else we're doing in this area.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion, Tony.
And Ruby, this was part of your first question, but I just want to go back to it because I think it's important. I do think the number of students is going to be different as we move forward with this program, because as Lisa spoke to earlier in her update, there's sort of an opt-out provision, and there are legal parameters within special education that parents can certainly refuse services, but that's a different process than the opt-out that exists when you have contractors from another organization in your building. And so there are some students who have opted out of the current structure that I think we're very much hoping to be able to engage within an in-house structure. I think your question, though, about how do we measure this over time in a way that can be public facing is going to be an important question, because while we do drill down to the individual student a lot, that's obviously not going to be an appropriate update for this sort of public session. So I think that's part of the planning that still needs to happen at this point. And so hopefully that's helpful. And I should have framed this at the beginning when I gave a summary, just so the people who are not on curriculum committee know why we're here and what we need to do tonight. We did discuss this in more detail at a curriculum committee meeting last week. And so the purpose of tonight is to bring it forward to the full Board of Education and provide, as you've already gotten into, an opportunity to ask some follow-up questions. So I just wanted you to have that context.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. That's what I was getting to. I think the updates are going to have to be more qualitative than quantitative, because it is going to be so individualized. But you guys are the experts, so then you're going to come to the table to say whether it's working or not.
And then Tracy, just for the members of the board that may not have participated in our meeting last week about this, maybe talk about the necessity to approve this program moving forward because of the transitions and the plans you'll need to put in place for individual students to really make this program beneficial for next year.
Yes, so we certainly want to answer all of the questions that you have, but the sooner that we can make a decision, the better, because you can imagine we do have a lot of people who are excited about this plan, but they're in their beginning stages of sharing some additional ideas about like the logistics of how this will work and what our process will be and who's going to do what. And we'd like to delve into that much more deeply, especially as we move into January. And then I think the bigger piece to making a decision is how do we best support the students and families as we move from one program structure to another. And that's really going to need to be a multi-stage process because there's going to need to be a lot of communication. Parents are going to have questions. I think the sooner we can get ahead of that, the more likely it is that we'll be able to help these additional families that I'm talking about get on board with the plan, feel comfortable with the plan, and know that we're poised to start, our next school year with this fully in motion.
And also, just for the public record, I'm going to ask the same question that I asked at our curriculum meeting, just so we can have it out there. As you noted, in the past 5 years, we've had ESS in place, and we have also added to the counseling staff at the high school in various capacities. So now we added those because of needs. So now we're doing away with potentially the ESS program. And this plan calls to hire one social worker and one para. Do we have the manpower still in place to be able to support the high school counseling department? Meredith, I'm looking at you. Lisa, I know it's your responsibility too. Counseling department with the needs of all of our students. I mean, you know, part of the reason why we've had to expand the counseling department is the expanded services that we're offering, the expanded demand for the services that are offered. Are the 2 people we're proposing hiring, is that enough to maintain everything?
Meredith.
Sure. I truly believe it is. You know, if you think of our existing social worker and her current caseload, and I don't think anyone really realizes how many students she currently works with. And I think, you know, we're talking about the social worker taking over this program and who's going to be the face of this program. I believe that that person will be able to handle the needs of those students and that caseload. And then with hiring an additional social worker for our department to replace that person, I think we definitely will be able to still be able to handle the needs of our students. Again, we also have a school psychologist who is here to also help the counseling needs. And again, with the addition of our college and career counselor, that has truly helped our department help, you know, deal with the post-secondary planning. So that's relieved a whole area, you know, where our school counselors had to focus so much more time. Now we have a partner in that with our college and career counselor. So I truly believe that we do have a lot of people to be able and resources to still help with the counseling.
And then I'm assuming this program will be flexible. I mean, ESS was a tier 3 program. I'm assuming this in-house program may be flexible so that depending on the number of students involved, you know, we may be able to assist some tier 2 people with a little bit more support to help them out. It might be a little more flexibility to the level of service offered to each individual student.
Yeah, that's exactly something we need to outline in this transition plan that we keep alluding to in this discussion. It's what's the distinction between tier 2 and tier 3, and how do we make the decision about what tier 2 maybe fall under the umbrella of this new program versus a tier 2 that might be better suited within a different support model within the high school, if that makes sense.
No, it does. Just trying to get my head around all the parameters and the moving pieces. But yeah, thank you, Tracy.
I had a question about the SIL time. So is there any other way to work it than to take SIL time away? Can you add SIL time for this?
Hillary, if I could just jump in. Can you hear me? Yep. We're not looking to take away any of the SIL time. So the 0.5 release time for the SILs for coaching will still be dedicated time and will not be infringed upon by the teaching responsibilities, which 0.2 of which include facilitating the academic component for these students. So you know, this will be a typical class on their teaching schedule, and will be separate from their SIL responsibilities, if that makes sense.
So if it's 0.8, let's forget identifying it SIL or not, but essentially it's taking 0.8 of teaching time, which that correlates to 4 class sections, 8 class sections, 4. So essentially that'll be taking 4 class sections that are currently available and shifting them to this program. Do you have that flexibility in your class schedule as you're building it, that we're still going to be offered this same amount of options to the rest of the high school for classes?
Yes, what we did was we were very careful in looking at the staffing. And, you know, we're always very staffing is the key. is how can we staff the most effectively to provide the most access to courses, to not adversely impact the academic program. And we were able to do that successfully, to absorb that 0.8 in our proposed, our staffing proposal for the following year. No course went away. It was just kind of reconfiguring some numbers and things like that. And we're very fortunate because we have writing center, we have math lab, we have the CASE Center for Academic Support and Enhancement. We had certain classes that are still collaborative, but we look at all of this, we look at the numbers and the offerings, and I'm pleased to say that we can do this. And the staffing piece of it, as far as the academic FTE, is neutral. It's just reallocated.
So are we, oops. So are we looking for a vote here?
Any other questions or comments? Yeah, I think that, yeah, we are, if we're ready to vote on this, I think that we should have a vote. I think the budget considerations probably will be handled at budget times, but I think this is a vote, correct me if I'm wrong here, this is a vote to actually replace ESS with alternative pathways, right?
Yes, but I mean, we can note from the information presented at curriculum that switch would save the district,
Right.
45,000,
That's
50,000, something like that.
Sure. So I think if we're ready to vote, I think it's probably a good thing that we get this done. And then the budgetary impact we'll have that discussion at budget time.
Gina Albert, you're up.
I was gonna say, do we want a motion?
We need a motion.
Move that the Weston Board of Education approve the new program, Weston High School Alternative Pathways.
Do we, sorry to be wordsmithing, do we need any language that says as a replacement for?
I don't think so. We'll do that at budget time.
Okay, thank
No,
you.
actually, we don't need that. We just won't approve ESS in the spring when their contract's up for renewal.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
And I just underscore that because I think we're working hard here. We appreciate the work ESS has done the last 5 years. We're working hard to keep it framed that way. Other districts have added ESS. Others have made this type of transition. Fairfield has recently. So anything we can do to keep this as which it is, we've learned from I think ESS, and we're going to build forward.
Yep. Good.
Can we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Hi, Ruby.
Hi, Gina.
Hi, Taffy.
I'm Melissa.
Hi, Victor.
Great.
Hi, Hillary.
Aye, Tony. All opposed? Okay, motion passes. I think this is great. It's I know we this is the what? I don't know, the third year on the board, fourth year, yeah. And we've had this discussion every year. It's nice to finally see that we've kind of all come to a consensus decision on how to move forward on this. It's great.
And I think it also bodes very well for the district to have this kind of in-house expertise. It's a point of pride, and we really look forward to seeing it unfold.
Yep. Great, thank you. Thanks for your hard work on this. All right, next item is teacher residency program, Bill.
Well, we've had quite a thorough meeting. There is some logic for this item following on the previous one. The previous one, as you all spoke to, underscores the level of innovation and creativity that the team that spoke to you has been exerting, even in the midst of trying to just do what we do in the midst of a pandemic, that often has been just enough for most districts. But your team here really moved with great innovation regarding the alternative pathways. Similarly, within diversity, equity, inclusion, as we're now calling this area of work, as many of you have flagged, many organizations use that phrasing now. We're using it. We have a couple things to update you on, one of which is the teacher residency program. I'm going to speak to that first, and then Ken wants to give you some updates, and we've held the principals late tonight because I think we're going to ask them to chime in a bit. I apologize for having you go extra late in the night with us, principals. But certainly Patty and Laura may want to, after I've talked about the teacher residency program a bit, just introduce that to you as a board, see what kind of questions you have. I talked earlier today with Patty and Laura about this, as well as the other principals. They had questions, which I have gotten more answers to since we chatted earlier today. But then also when Ken speaks to the work of the Connecticut Center for School Change with the entire leadership team, and including curriculum instructional leaders, I think it's important the board get an update on that, because some very exciting work on vital initiatives occurring. So in terms of the correct teacher residency program, posted for you PowerPoint. I attached that because that was a recent PowerPoint used with a number of districts that have been considering the program. I'm not going to walk you back through that document. I'm actually, but I will come back to the letter of intent and the cover email of the letter of intent in a second. But I did send to the board earlier today, and I think it's been posted. Let me just see if it was posted. There was a 2-page executive summary. Yes, thank you, Ruby, that went to you that I thought was particularly valuable for explaining the program. And that was just shared today by the head of the program. And if I'd had that before, I wouldn't have buried you in the PowerPoint. I would have simply just sent that short document along, but you have it there. It features all the key elements of this. What's important in that 2-pager is right up top. You see graphically, as all of you would understand, that fundamentally this program is working on what is a historic mismatch, a historic failing for us in education in all areas, which often the diversity of our students is not at all matched by the diversity of the teachers, faculty, staff working with those students. And you see there graphically the situation in Connecticut. And Connecticut's not alone, be it public schools, independent schools, parochial schools, even higher ed. That discrepancy is there. So this program was started 2 years ago by CREC in one part of the state to address that. And they've had now 2 cohorts. They're expanding for the upcoming school year down into this region, working with CES to bring forward a residency program. The program is designed to address what I think you all understand to be quite a challenge for us as we try and diversify our teaching force and teaching faculties. A lot of labor economists have looked at this for a long time, but now for a variety of reasons, those going in to teach individuals of color have decided not as much to do that. So we have to get that pipeline flowing again and get it flowing very early. So this program is designed to locate individuals who have a bachelor's, but who are not currently teaching, do not currently have certification, and bring them into an 18-month residency program. It's a statewide effort, again, would have a regional base, and to have partnering districts that would have one or more residents who would be hired by that district, but part of this regional and statewide program. I keep saying regional because the sense of a cohort, the sense of support, both locally and across the state, is critical for this. But the individuals selected, and if Weston stays in this program, hired by Weston, would come in as a resident for 18 months. The program starts in the summer before they would come into the district. There's summer work, summer academic work, more studies towards their certification. They then come in that August as a resident, and it's all at the elementary level. It's a K-6 certification they're working towards. They would join the district in August, not as the teacher of record, but as a resident working with a mentor teacher who'd be one of our full-time teachers. They would be placed substantially in one classroom, but would have the flexibility based on our design to move amongst multiple classrooms. They would have ongoing coursework during that school year, the residency school year. By the time they hit that following summer, they would have had an intensive year of residency work with us, mentoring, coursework, networking through CES with other residents here in area districts, as well as part of a statewide effort. Then in that second summer, they would complete what's required for their certification and other pieces. And then they would be receiving a 90-day certificate at that point in the summer. And then in that fall, so of that second August, if there's a placement available in this district, and we can come to that, it was a question of the principals today. If there's a placement available in this district, they would be placed as a teacher of record in this district and would then be doing one last set of coursework while teaching to round out the necessary certification to be fully certified K-6 within the state of Connecticut. So that's the 18 months if you've sort of tracked it through, with a range of supports both required from within the partnering district, which are clearly listed in the material I sent, plus there's 2 pages, very tight and neat, listing the requirements that we would have as a district, but also the requirements for the residents. A couple questions the principals asked today is this obligation. Is it an obligation for us if we have a resident? Are we obligated to provide them that full-time position once they're that teacher of record? That is the goal, but TRP understands, especially in a small district, we may not have an opening. We're not going to be required to create a line position for that individual. At that point, and I did do legwork on this today, the principals asked me, is that then we would hope that individual would find placement in one of the other network districts. And when we had an opening, would conceivably want to come back here. This is a grow your own. This is a help to bring people up through into the profession. But there would be that flexibility that they could go to another, ideally, network district. We would hope we have an opening, but if we don't, that individual still would provide, get the launching pad, if you will, from Weston. If we didn't have an opening and at some future point wanted to create the line for the individual, you could do that. Questions today about any employee, it's not regarding here, we hire the best. And someone right out, we don't tend to hire people right out of their bachelor's level or brand new. We would still want to hire the best, but a very important point here is, and this is what I talked with the director of the program today, if we truly are going to grow the pipeline, we often now need to think a little bit differently here in terms of how we're getting the best in. And it may well be that we identify someone, we hire them, and we say we have 18 months to work with them and cultivate them and help them grow to the level of what a top flight district would demand, because that we typically don't hire teachers unless they've had 4 or 5 years of experience. But we could very much be growing people and bringing them along. Question of if someone comes in and is struggling relative to what's expected, there would be a variety of interventions early. We would be doing that. The TRP would be doing that. We'd be working closely and tracking an individual resident. So if early on, even midpoint, it was clear this wasn't a good match, we could work to address that and help to make a change. So that would be an aspect of this program. As I talked with a while ago, Tony, Pesco, and Melissa about this, like a lot of districts, the timing on this caught up with all of us, again, due to pandemic. And there suddenly appeared for a whole bunch of us just a few days before December 11th, the need for TRP to say, we need you to commit at least your intentions to participate. So I was given the green light by the chair to at least keep us in the process here, keep us in the consideration with this program. So submitted the letter of intent that you see in the record, submitted it with a cover email, quite intentionally listing that we would hope to stay in this process, but we have to look at the budgetary implications of it. A thought, depending on the board's interest here, is that this could be quite natural, at least one of these placements, for us to turn to WEF or other philanthropic sources. I think you saw, at least in the PowerPoint, if not in the 2-pager, districts are turning to title monies, they're turning to philanthropic resources, They're turning to a variety of places to allow this program to continue. Last update, which is very important in the 2-pager, is you see what are called the districts, the intending districts, interesting description. And you can see from our area, the other intending districts. The interested district list, which I'd seen a week ago, is a bit bigger in this area. There are some of our sister and brother districts that have chosen not to participate. But you do see here, right next door, Westport, a few others that are very much intending to participate in this district, this program. So my recommendation to the superintendent is that we stay in this process as long as we can. If the board's positive on this, I think it's a critical part of our work on diversity, equity, and inclusion. It goes right directly into one of the biggest fundamental problems we all have, which is diversifying our teaching faculty. It would be a bit different. It would be growing our own, fostering our talent, and I think that's exciting. And I think right now, with several area districts and CES very active on this, it's important for us to see how long we can stay in this effort. And again, I've personal pronoun because I had put my name on as superintendent. I have very much structured this so we have 4 or 5 points where we can go back to TRP to say we're really trying, but we can't fit this in financially. But I've urged everyone to think about the program, the merits of the program, think about it that way, and then later we'll start to figure out whether it's affordable. So I don't know if that's a fair introduction or not. Ken, you've been a little closer to it right now. Jen Ryan has been assigned as the point on this because she is actually working to up within the HR realm, our other efforts on diversity and recruitment of a diverse faculty and staff. We can speak to that as necessary. It's listed in the goals draft document, actually with some specificity that documents with Tony and Melissa now. But we can speak to more questions or thoughts you have on this.
So I love this program. I think it's great. I ask simply is, and I love that it's a mentoring program where, you know, our excellent top-notch staff can work with young educators and learn, and we will learn a lot from them as well, I would imagine. How much of the teaching time is it going to take? In other words, will it be, again, I'm asking the burden question, will it be a burden on the teacher's time, the master teacher, the master mentor's time to now be also mentoring another teacher? Or is it like the role of a SIL, for example?
Taffy, that's a great question. And I think all of us have some knowledge.
Yeah.
I don't have the exact answer, but I think some of the answer is that the mentor teacher will have a stipend. And that's one of the things that we would set a stipend relative to the Western stipend.
That makes sense.
And because there's recognition that this is, you have to take this seriously. And that means as a mentor, you got to give it time. And it's not simply, oh, I have a student teacher in my room. And our best teachers work really well with the student teachers because many of the people on the Zoom have been student teachers to get where they got. And we know that comme ci, comme ça on how that works. So I think here, this would be, you've got to be giving it time. So that's why that stipend's there. The mentor teacher also will get another benefit. They too are part of this network. So I think with some of our veteran teachers, this could be a growth opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely.
And some districts, I'm not saying West, in some districts, and that's why I think that intent list, it may be budgetary, it might be another. If we're truly going to solve this problem, it's so graphically portrayed at the top of that 2-pager, we have to think differently. How about we get our talent in? And that grow your own ideas is, so that mentoring piece is essential to this.
I hate that expression, grow your own. Is that in the document? I just don't think that's a.
No, that's simply.
Yeah, I don't think it's, I think these people that are coming to work with us are fully grown and they're going to mature as educators, but that we have a lot to learn from them as well. And I think we should change our lexicon on that.
Yeah, well said.
I too am really excited about this program. I think it's totally thinking outside of the box. And like Taffy said, I think, you know, I understand our methodology in terms of why we hire people with experience, 4 to 5 years, but I think there is beauty also hiring just raw talent too, in terms of, because then I think it forces us to do things differently or think outside of the box or look at things in another way. My question is hypothetically, if a resident were to join our program, start the 18 months, we just figure out in the middle of it that it is not a right fit, do we have to complete the 18th month cycle to get a new resident, or would we get one, would we replace the one that's left us?
I thought you were going one place with the question. I think the 18-month matters, that evolution in time. So I think we would, but I was very specific today with the director about if someone's not, just because if someone's struggling, you don't want to keep extending it. So you find a way to help them do something different. But I think because that 18-month matters for them to get the certification, that would likely mean at that point we would be without the resident. Now, I could follow up on that question. Conceivably, there might be someone else in another cohort or someone was left out. But I think, to be clear, that 18-month matters because you start in that summer with coursework and all the rest. That then I think the basic answer is
that's fair. And would we structure the 18th month more as like a rotational program where they get exposure to different teachers, or are we looking at only one teacher? Or maybe one teacher for one academic year and another one, or just one teacher for the whole 18 months?
Very creative question. I think there needs to be a mentor teacher of record, if you will. But I think that we can really help here with up and coming we can help with the talent by helping them make more exposure. But I think we have to, that focus work with the mentor is going to matter. And if we can make this work, that's why at least now is the to one per of each of the elementary buildings, which I think would be a help in that regard, Ruby.
I'd love to get Patty and Laura's take on this program because they're going to be living under their roofs, so to speak.
I'm very excited by it. I think it's a great idea. I mean, I'm always looking to grow teachers, and bring in student teachers and things, but this is exciting. I was really interested to hear about this today. So.
Ditto. Yeah, it's a very exciting program and it sounds very promising. So I'm sorry, I lost my internet connection, so I may have missed the end of your conversation, but.
Yeah, I thought when we first heard about this, not to get in front of the rest of the board on this, but, I thought this really hit the heart of, potentially what we're trying to do in terms of increasing, staff diversity in a meaningful way. I mean, and provide opportunities for talent that's right out of school as well. So, it's something that we just couldn't dismiss outright because of dollars and cents. I think this is something we have to see through and find a way of getting this funded. If we can't do it as from a budgetary standpoint, we should certainly try to do this from, outside dollars. But I think we should stay on this and figure out a way of getting this funding and getting this done.
Well, if it's okay with you, I think Dan and I would love to forward this to WEF just to get them included on the conversation. And, I know that they're going to be thrilled to see this as well. But anyway, it couldn't hurt to just include them from the get-go.
Ruby, thank you, because actually, if I may, the thought would have the conversation here first, and then based on that, definitely talk with WEF. This pager, I think, that surfaced today. That's why I sent
it's a good highlight. Yes.
I think
also list Weston in there. Sorry, Tony.
Taffy and I and Dan had a conversation with WEF around, initiatives related to a diversity, equity, and inclusion initiative, and I think this fits right in. So
it may. I mean, Tony, it may. We can discuss it afterwards.
Yeah.
I mean, they are absolutely willing to support anything in this bucket, but they specifically would also like someone to work with the district writ large on cultural competency as an advisor.
Yep.
So if there's enough to go around, yes, for both.
Probably going to have to pick and choose, but it's certainly worth the conversation.
Yeah.
Any other questions, comments? Great, thank you. I think this, let's see, nothing on old business.
Wait, Ken's gonna go to the other critical work on the DEI, update you.
Oh, okay, great.
Yep.
I'll be efficient, and I'll try to tie together a lot of the conversation we've had tonight. I mean, the DEI work, we've just heard about our work to try to bring more diversity through the TRP program. We've heard earlier this evening about new course proposals at the high school that enhance our curriculum. So we just keep building on the work that even before more of a spotlight was put on this past spring and became a major initiative for the district. We had given some updates on all the things that in the English Social Studies department at the high school, as well as at the lower schools, we've been doing to try to enhance the curriculum and make it more inclusive. I'm also excited to just update you that the training that is so essential for our staff and our leaders, we're continue to build on that. And last Monday, all of our administrators and curriculum leaders had the first of a series of workshops with the Connecticut Center for School Change. And we're working with the same two facilitators that are working with the middle school staff with Dan over the course of this year. And we hope this is going to be a partnership that continues to grow with the Connecticut Center into next year, because we realize this work with DEI is really multi-year work. It has to start slowly and build and continue to grow over the course of the next few years. And so I'm glad that it's part of the district goals, the school goals. But our first session, really was about our leaders learning more about this work and how we are going to lead the work going forward. So the training that the administrators are going to be continuing to receive is a slightly different pathway than what's happening in Dan's building, what's happening in Lisa's building. But we do have the district leaders, the 612 staff engaged in this. And we are now going to be looking at, in the new year, where's the appropriate point and way, to engage the lower schools. And maybe there is, an opportunity here, whether it's with the Connecticut Center or, in discussions with Patty and Laura, we'll figure out how the best entry point would be and when that would be. But this work is really now becoming more global in the district, and it's very exciting. So you can see how it's kind of all kind of coming together and starting to connect. So Dan, I know, is excited. Lisa's been excited with staff, and we've had really good positive feedback so far. In terms of the trainings. And Dan, Lisa, if there's anything you want to add, certainly, but I know it's getting late and we're trying to be efficient here. Okay, I don't know if there are any questions.
Thanks, Ken.
Yep.
Anything for the committee chair to report? No. Okay.
I'll just say, as finance, obviously budget season is upon us, and I encourage everyone to check our meeting calendar. We have tons of meetings coming up in January, both during the day and in the evening. And I encourage people, if they can't watch live, that meetings will be recorded and they can catch up at their leisure.
Yes. So between now and the next board meeting, we have a budget presentation and 2 workshops. So, it will all be zoomed into everyone's living rooms for them to enjoy. Bill, is there anything else from you?
No, I think we've covered everything.
Okay. So this is the last meeting of the year. Like I said, we will have we'll have a special meeting to discuss schooling scenarios. Probably we'll try to schedule one on the Monday when we get back. After which we will have a budget presentation on the 7th, and then 2 workshops before the next board meeting. Anything else from any of the board members? No? Well, I want to wish everyone happy holidays, and hopefully everyone gets a good rest over the break and enjoys whatever time they have with their families, and energized for part 2 of this incredibly different school year. Thanks everyone for all your hard work, and happy holidays to everyone.
Happy holidays.
Have a motion to adjourn?
Oh, so moved.
Okay, second?
Second.
Okay, meeting adjourned. Thank you.